Hello, kiddies. It's your old pal John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I hope you get to check out my good fiends at A Decade of Horror on the PSVG Podcast Network. I hope you love them like I do. They're a scream.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Greetings, Kooplings, and welcome back to PSVG, the 2023 installment of A Decade of Horror. I am your host, your captain this evening, Donnie Reeves, and I'm joined by Spooky Bones, Josh Mann himself. Welcome back. It's nice to see you another year down in our lives, another inch closer to the end. And joining us for the first time is none other than Delvin Cox.
Ooh. What's up, spooky bitches?
The MVP of PSVG. He's on every show these days. He's just on. He is the podcast.
I'm like from ESPN. What's my man name? Who's on everything now?
I don't know.
Damn, I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. That's
good job.
Well, fuck.
Yeah, he's on everything, but I don't know who he is.
Just completely fucked that up. that's typical for me.
If you're listening to this for the first time, I understand you may be like, what the hell's going on? So I'll give you a quick recap. Years ago, I believe in 2019, 20?
Yeah, 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah. Myself, Josh, and Lucas got together and we wanted to do a seasonal horror movie podcast, which we called PSVG's A Decade of Horror. And what we did, the show format at the time was we would run down every year of the past decade, so from 2010 to 2020, and we talked about our favorite horror movies of each year. We created a list, and then at the end, we made our ultimate decade list of horror movies. We always thought we would keep going, but like we really kind of broke from that show format. We don't really do that same show anymore. Just over the years, every year that passed, we would just kind of get together for an annual horror movie-thon. And the idea is to have this out. I like to have this out in early October while everybody is grasping for spooky movie recommendations. And that's the kind of the idea, is that this is your companion podcast. If you only watch horror movies in October, we want to be there for you to give you the deets on everything that dropped, what we liked, what we didn't like, what to stay away from, and let you choose for yourself. We each have 10. We've got 10 movies that we're going to count down, and we're going to talk about the ones we didn't watch, and we're going to talk about honorable mentions, of course. We'll also talk about older movies that we liked and kind of what's on our to-do list this year for Halloween ourselves. But we have to start the show like we did each decade of horror, the best way possible. And that would be with Josh Bones' fun facts, in quotes, fun facts of 2023. So Josh, why don't you let us know about the year that was?
I'll be honest, there's enough depressing stuff at the beginning of the year. I didn't go a full year, which is
God damn it, Josh.
Josh is like, that's enough.
Do your
yeah.
Josh.
I know. Well, the truly horrific thing is my full-time job of dad has been very scary these past few months. So not in a bad way, but like just tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that takes up all my time. You know, my son got kicked out of camp today for spitting at somebody. So that was a fun way to come home.
Yeah.
Way to go. Good job, kid.
Yeah. Because he thought it
Maybe he
would be
deserved
got
it.
kicked out of school for throwing a chair at someone. So
yeah.
It's
Well,
okay.
I feel like we're gonna graduate to that at some point.
My daughter hit a kid with a chair once.
Yeah. All
Just
I mean,
went full WWE on this kid at daycare.
Yeah. If you're gonna pick up a chair, that's
love
what
it.
you want to do. Hit.
yes.
Okay, let's start at the beginning of the year. Oh boy, I don't even want to read some of these things.
Here we go.
boy. Turkey and Syria struck by a 7.8 magnitude, killing 59,000 people. Good start to the year.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
What a way to start a decade of horror.
A few months
Just with
later,
horror.
Finland officially joins NATO, becoming the 31st member of the Security Alliance. Next month later, the writer's strike happens, which we just got out of, which is very fun. June 18th, those people really, really wanting to visit the Titanic got to stay there.
Oh, you're right. I forgot all about the sub.
Yeah.
So
that was the best. That was the best, like 4 days of TikTok ever.
Just short the ick.
Yeah.
We had some famous deaths. Tina Turner died. Lisa Marie Presley died. Sinead O'Connor died. Lance Reddick died, among very many, many more people so far. We also learned that Edward Norton's relatives had some type of either non-consensual or consensual sex with Pocahontas, because we find out he is the 12th generation grandchild of Pocahontas.
I didn't know that at all. Wow.
I didn't know that at all.
To maybe be happy about? Probably not.
Probably not, yeah.
Jeremy Renner almost gets killed by a snowplow.
I remember
Can
that.
take that either way.
Almost
Tom
lost
Brady
Hawkeye.
finally actually really retires, which is, as a Pats fan, it's nice to see him.
Yeah.
Just
Lost
stop
his
talking
marriage and
stop
his
playing.
career.
Damn.
A couple quick hits. We got Mexican aliens. We got Danny Masterson going to jail for the rest of his life. AI is taking over. And for me, probably my favorite news of this year is Jim Ryan is leaving PlayStation.
Oh, yes. The end on a strong note. I like it. Thank you.
Oh, I have another note that we have that's probably fitting for this show because it's crazy. They caught Tupac's killer today.
That's right.
That's wild. Yeah, you're right. What a listeners, this wasn't meant to be as bad as it was. It's just that as we started, we did the show a few times. Those were all that Josh kept bringing, so it became its own bit.
Yeah, it's got to be a thing. All the bad things that happen. We don't have to talk. Did the Queen die this year or last year? I don't even remember. Who knows?
The Queen. Speaking of this year, last year, I'm going to get us out of here. Speaking of this year, last year, when we were doing Decade of Horror, we were copious note takers. At least I was. I had directors and actors' names and all that. I don't have any of that. Okay. So I don't know if all the movies, I know at least one of the movies that I watched that's on my list this year didn't even come out this year. And you know what? Just get over it. Just figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about like how we make our lists and just generally ask you the question before we start breaking it down. Yeah. How do you think the horror movie industry fared in 2023? What do you think about the year that was?
It's a great year for horror. Since in the past 10 years, it's been a great year for horror every year. But I think finally, in the past 2 years, I think it's gone pretty mainstream compared to probably more like back to like what it was like in the late 80s, early 90s, where it was very, very, very popular and people are going to the box office to see horror movies. I think there's a long time in between like 2000 and 2018 where we got a lot of like bad horror movies, like almost like the Sci-Fi Channel level of horror movie with a couple sprinkled in here and there. But I think now people kind of discovered, and I'll talk about a movie that I think inspired that. People discovered that horror can be a lot more than just jump scares and gore. There's a lot more to it now at this point.
Yeah. I'll take the bait and I'll go ahead and disagree with you a bit. I didn't think this year was particularly great overall. Every year, I think there's always something to look forward to. And I definitely had some movies I really enjoyed this year, but as a group, not my favorite year in horror, and probably my least favorite maybe in several years, I think. Like I'm looking at my list and I've got movies I'm even like pretty meh on that are like 6'5". I'm like, wow. It seems to be it's a pretty steep drop from my first or second movie down the middle of the pack. It's not like in some of those decade of horror years, man, we had some really good movies at the 9th and 10th spot,
Well,
and some
I
really
think,
hard ones to leave off.
I think we're harder on the movies now, but I think that we're seeing more people into like we're lukewarm on some of these where people are way up top.
I can't wait to talk to you about that because I am definitely super high on something that we'll save it. What do you think, Delvin? What do you think of 2023?
I'm kind of in the middle between you guys because when I first found out I was going to be on this show, I was like, well, I don't think I watched that many scary movies and stuff like that. It wasn't that great of a year. Then I looked at the list of movies I watched. I was like, oh, I just passively watched a bunch of horror movies this year.
Yeah.
And I found them pretty either decent or good. And so it's like, I guess it was a good year. So when you're watching horror movies and you go out to see them, don't even think about it, that's how you know it's something out there that's pretty good or something that's catching your interest. Because, usually when I want to go see a horror film, I'm looking forward to it. I'm marking it on my calendar. This is what I want to go see. But if I'm just like finding stuff like, oh, I want to watch this. This looks interesting. I'm watching it and still enjoying it. That's a good sign. Not saying it's the best year. Not saying it's the worst year. It's a good year.
Yeah.
Especially for small budget horror films.
Well, that is very true. I mean, my list is full of either directorial debuts or like their first feature director debut. Like they may have directed something nobody's ever heard of or went on YouTube, but I was actually surprised when I was like going through it. I have so many movies from like first time directors, or if it's not their first time, maybe it's like their second movie. It's not like there's not a whole lot of like this horror icon director is released. This is the 9th movie in his there's not a lot of that on my list at all. I've got a lot of like international stuff, like it is varied in that regard, kind of in the lower tier. So we do have a lot of variety. I mean, I give that for it. And it's been pretty good in that space. There's a lot to choose from. So yeah, I was thinking of this last night. My wife was kind of giving me hell. Insidious 5 might be ruining a lot of this for me because I watched that last night and I may just be bringing that negative energy in here because I fucking hated that movie.
Oh, really?
So like, I'll just go ahead and throw that out there now. So, yeah, so let us begin. And before we talk about the movies we liked, what movies have you not seen? Obviously we can't watch everything. We can't be all inclusive all the time. So are there some movies? So like I'll start. Movies that I didn't see. Obviously The Nun 2, which just released, is not out yet at home. I didn't go to the movie theaters to see it. The Exorcist is not out yet. It comes out in a couple weeks. But the ones that were like out that were pretty popular, one that might surprise Josh is I have yet to see Beau is Afraid.
I wanted to see this movie, but the more I heard about it, the less
same
as a horror movie.
Same, which is why it hasn't been that high on my to-do list. I was going to see The Pope's Exorcist because my wife in particular loves religious horror. Yeah. And she watched it without me. I guess it came to Netflix or something, and I just walked in on her watching the movie like midway through. And I've never went back to try and catch up on it. I was like, I'm fine. Like, I never particularly felt like I needed to see that one. I also did not see The Last Voyage of Demeter, which
I want to see that too.
Had a ginormous marketing campaign. I saw that movie everywhere for a month.
Yeah.
But I never gave it a try yet. So those are the movies I didn't see. What about you guys?
Well, I guess Insidious, all the ones you said, plus the one that's coming out like today, Saw, which I love the Saw series, and I'm like,
good pull.
It's out today.
That would be on mine.
Horror though, so.
And if you're new here, this will surprise you. I never plan on seeing that movie. I'm not that into the Saw franchise. I don't think I'll ever watch it.
And I am the opposite. I love the Saw franchise.
I haven't watched the last 4 or 5. I haven't watched any of them.
Yeah, I really like Saw, but I watched the trailer for this new one, and I'll be honest, I think it looks terrible. So I'll still see it.
It has to be better than Spiral.
Does it?
I didn't see Spiral, so.
Does it have to be?
Yeah. Chris Rock was the lead, and there's a scene where he literally just plays Pookie from New Jack City.
Oh, jeez. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
What about you, Josh? You got anything on your to-do list?
Skinamarink is on my list. I don't.
We were talking about it.
Yeah, I don't expect to like it, but I feel like it's one of those
Shut up.
movies that I have to see. Cobweb is a movie I really want to see because
I
really
also
like
didn't
Lizzie
see Cobweb.
Kaplan.
Good pull. Yep, I forgot about that one.
Okay.
And
Which one's Cobweb?
It has a Lizzie Kaplan and a child,
Mhm.
and it's one of those movies where it's a parent and a child.
Yeah.
And it's the idea is to cause dread via child. So
Which Josh always sees through. So I see your cheap thrills. You're not going to get me.
it's not.
Fuck these kids.
Yeah. And I will say I'm about halfway through the Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't talk about it because I don't have enough to go on. But I want to finish that as well.
That
And that's on
may not be on my list of movies I saw.
Okay. All right.
We'll get to it.
Well, speaking of those lists, let's get into it. And let's do honorable mentions. How do you guys want to do this? You guys want to do this one at a time, or you just want to rattle off a few and discuss as we go?
I'll give you my two because it's really easy and really quick.
Okay.
The first one is Barbarian because I saw that earlier this year.
Okay.
I thought it was really good. Thought-provoking. I think there's some parts of it that are a little bit weak, like the second half. I don't want to spoil it for people. I think people should see it. But I feel like the second half and the way they kind of finish that plot off is a little weak for me. But it's an enjoyable film. I see why people liked it, but I don't think it deserved the praise that it got. Because when it came out, people were like, "Oh, this is an amazing, groundbreaking horror film." Like, oh, this is good. It's not as amazing as you make it seem, but it was good, and I saw the idea of what they were doing with it.
Yeah. I think it's groundbreaking horror that is the first of its kind and blends comedy and horror together. I think it's one of the best movies ever made in horror films.
Yeah, he's a big fan.
I don't agree with that at all.
But that's okay.
That's okay.
It's okay.
We're not going to agree on most anything.
Yeah.
That's the point of the show.
Yeah.
Right. If we all agreed, it wouldn't be that good of a show. Plus, we all have our different perspectives that we bring to the movies we like, and that's better for the listener.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to break it down because I think people should see it. I think it's really good. But
yes, no, you should watch it not knowing anything about it.
Exactly. I will say that. That is 100% accurate.
Okay.
And my second movie, get it out the way because it was dumb, stupid, not good, but it was funny. Beast.
Oh, that's on my list.
Nice.
It is a ridiculous, stupid movie. It's so dumb, but it's like a Fast and Furious horror movie where essentially it's Idris Elba's in Africa with his kids, and there's
I forgot about
a lion
that one.
killing people.
I didn't watch that one either.
It's dumb.
It's very good.
It's so stupid. It's entertaining. Like there's a scene, and I can spoil this part because it's in the trailer, where Idris Elba punches a lion in the face. I'm like, what's going on with this movie? It's ridiculous, but I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Well, you know what they do, Donnie?
Not
They
for all the wrong
put
reasons.
kids in danger.
Bait. Yep.
Yes, they do. That is
So it's a
100%
Chris-
the thing in this movie.
Chris Idris Elba Redfield to punch lions in the face. Just
Exactly.
all right. Josh, honorable mentions?
Yeah, Beast is on there. I think I couldn't remember if this came out before or after we recorded last year. So Candyman remake and Hellraiser are both on my honorable mentions. I think they're both.
Y'all talked about Candyman.
Yeah,
I know I did. Yeah.
and it was
definitely.
fine.
Yes.
It was fine. And I think Hellraiser was decent. It wasn't like the Hellraiser that we all know.
I loved Candyman until they ruined the rules of Candyman at the end.
Lore, yeah.
The whole point of the whole reason it exists at the end.
Yeah.
It's pretty cheap,
enjoyed
guys.
until that part.
And
Horror fans, you can't do that. You can't break the rules. We have rules. We live in a society.
I'll throw Prey and Black Phone on that list, but I think we talked about Black Phone. I don't know if we talked about Prey.
I've seen Black Phone. Yeah,
Prey
I
is
like
y'all
Black
talked
Phone a
about
lot.
Black Phone.
Yeah.
You did not talk about Prey. Prey was excellent.
Prey is excellent. It's a great. It's like I would call it like loose horror. It's more sci-fi than horror, but because it's grounded and it doesn't highlight the sci-fi aspect as much, I think that we could consider that as much horror as we could consider Beast. So I think it's like right in the same
I agree.
area.
I should have had that one on my list, but yes, Prey is excellent.
Well, I'm ready to get us kicked off in a major way
Great.
because I'm about to snub some that I think are probably on your list.
Yeah.
Let's start with, I'm going to start with the obvious. Dude, Insidious 5 sucks. Insidious the Red Door blows chunks. It was, I didn't finish it. It's the first horror movie in so long that I was just so not into it. I was like, I looked at my wife. I was like, I literally want to do anything else.
Yeah.
Just anything else right now. I just hated it. I really, really hated it. I didn't like the character. I don't like his dumb stares and all this and this super emo try it away. And they pull in, that has like this art motif that's laden through it where he's a drawer and a painter. And it actually reminds me, you guys remember the like 90s Amityville movie?
Yes.
Where the guy is like painting and then like living through the painting. Like it's very like that. But then the way that they do like the astral realm, the astral projection thing that they've always done, like, I don't know if I just need to rewatch Insidious. I got to admit, like, I loved the first one and I feel like it's been all downhill from the first one. I didn't like the last key, right? Was it the skeletal key? The last key? The one with the keys. I didn't think that one was very good either. But in this one, dude goes hopping into the demon world, and then in the real world, people can watch him open doors. And I was like, no, that's not how any of this works.
Oh boy. Yeah.
This is Patrick Wilson's debut director. Like, he's the director. And
oh no,
quite honestly, this might be his like my least favorite movie with him. Like, I actually think his acting, his portrayal of his character is bad. And having watched all these movies, you grew up with his family, like, you know, him and his wife and his son and everything that happened to them in the first movie and the second movie and the revisits. This is like fast forwarded, I guess, like 2 years, but like they're divorced and they're away and the kid is suddenly a college kid. And like, I don't know. I hated it. That's all it really needs to be said. I don't need to defend a reason why. I just did not like it at all. I spent $4 to rent that movie and it was $4 wasted.
Can I ask the question?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the type of movie that is bad because of the director, or is it bad because the script and everything else that's tagged along with it is bad?
Yes.
all of the above.
Casting. The kid has a roommate, and she adds some color to the dialogue. She's the only one that really seems to be speaking like naturally, but even then, she has some cringy lines. Just dumb lines. They go to a frat party. There's a guy dressed up like a baby. They call him Nick the Dick. They're chanting it. And then she kicks Nick in the dick, and then they rhyme it, and she delivers the line like Hulk Hogan on a 1984 wrestling. Like, it's just bad. It's just, there's no way around it, man. It's just not good. Like, I am willing. I love a good, bad horror movie. More than most. And I'm willing to like take opinions from people of all different takes, but if you tell me Insidious 5 is good, I no longer want to talk. like that might end the show, Josh, if you come back to me and you're like, The Red Door is a good movie.
The best Insidious movie, yeah.
Oh, God, it's bad. All right.
Well, before you go on, since you brought up a terrible movie, can I give my dishonorable mention?
Yeah. Not all of these I hated, but majority of these I'm going to speak down on. This is the SmackDown part of the show
that I hated so much. And I knew it was going to be bad, so this is my fault. But this movie is god-awful. And that movie is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Which I did not watch because I told you it was going to be terrible. When you asked me if we were going to watch it, I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to go watch that.
I knew it was, but I didn't know it was going to be this bad.
No, you should.
It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my goddamn life. It is so awful. It is so bad. It's like, why am I sat there watching. I watched the whole thing because I felt like I paid for it and I needed to watch the whole thing. And maybe that was my fault. Maybe I can only blame myself for watching this shitty movie.
Yeah.
But I'm going to spoil some of this movie for people because you shouldn't watch it. You shouldn't fucking care. Don't spend your money on this movie. Buy anything else than
Not
this
Insidious.
movie. Go buy drugs. Do anything else. This movie sucks. So essentially the plot of this movie is, which I think is an actually good plot. Christopher Robin goes away to college. And while he's away, the Poohs, if I'm correct, not all of the cast of Winnie the Pooh was up for they could use. I think they couldn't use Tigger or somebody else. So the people who were in Pooville was like it was Pooh,
Pooville.
Eeyore. Yes. Isn't that what they call it?
This movie sounds like Pooville.
Whoville.
Say whatever.
100 Acre Woods.
Yeah, the 100 Acre Woods. Thank you. So the people who are in this woods it's Eeyore, Pooh, and Piglet.
All right.
And while Christopher Robin is gone, they become feral, and they kill Eeyore.
Wow.
And Christopher Robin, they just
He
murder
kind of always
Eeyore,
wanted that to
and
happen.
Christopher Robin's
Yeah. They set
he
set
probably
Eeyore
find
free, you mean?
yes. and Christopher Robbins comes back for Pooh and Piglet to meet his girlfriend, and they're just homicidal maniac animals, and they like feral animals, and they're killing people, and they're trying to kill Christopher Robbins, and they kidnap him. And the
Sounds
whole
like a
point
good
of the
plot
movie
for the
is
next
there's no-
Toy Story movie.
It does. And the thing about it is, this could have been a really cool story
No, it couldn't have.
if they'd have put effort into it. It could have been. But they put no effort into it. Like the mask looks fake and it looks terrible. So halfway through the movie, I'm like, is it really Winnie the Pooh? Or is it like a guy in a Winnie the Pooh costume who's like pissed off? Like you're trying to, because his mouth is not moving, it looks fake. Then when you try to watch him eat honey, you see the honey like it's like looking at a mascot eat food. So
Like Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, like watching. So it's like
That was always my impression from the marketing that I saw was this is Chuck E. Cheese but Winnie the Pooh, and it's not going to be good.
yeah, and
Okay.
the
That was
kills
bad.
are not good. The only thing that's good is they show some boobs and like, oh, those are some nice boobs. That was the highlight of the film. That
In
was
a
it.
Winnie the
That
Pooh
was it.
movie? What the?
Yeah,
All right.
there's a girl who's in the pool and she has her top off for some strange reason. They're like, oh, there we go.
Great.
It's like they hired her just for that scene.
Well, I mean,
like
it is
you
a
have
horror.
great
It is a
breasts.
horror movie. So
You're hired. You have great breasts. You're hired. Come do this scene, and then
Okay.
we'll murder you. Like, all right.
all right. My next honorable mention is there's a Robert Englund documentary that's out there. It's really long. It's really long, and it really just I'm going to say it. I love Robert Englund. Again, new listeners, if you haven't heard, go back.
I do
He's
too.
One of my favorites. It really feels like a 3-hour movie made for him to talk about himself.
Yeah.
He does the majority of the talking. like it's like
Oh.
I was really hoping to hear like other people and backstories and behind the scenes and old set stories, and it is just him talking about Juilliard and college and like all these things that he did and the girls that liked him and his curly hair. I was like, man, this is brutal. Like this is kind of brutal. I was
Shit you
excited
don't care about.
for it, and it wasn't very good. Speaking of documentaries, Living with Chucky came out, and this is a documentary that I've been waiting on for some time. This is it was made by the daughter who made the original Chucky doll, and it's basically like a retelling of. Again, I was hoping for behind the scenes stuff that we've never seen before, and they mostly just walk you through the history of the movies, like the franchise. They give you like a little 5-minute snippet on each one, and then they like you see her and they do like they have little discussions together and stuff, but it's pretty short and not all that great. This thing had a lot of hype too. It was she's been working on I've been following this project for years, and it won like film festivals and stuff, and like I don't get it. There's Behind the Monsters on Shudder, which is like a documentary TV series. They have an episode of Chucky that's better than her whole documentary. So
That's disappointing.
the next one that I have on my honorable mentions is There's Something Wrong with the Children. You guys heard of this one?
I have, yeah.
I
I've
think
not
I
seen
saw
it.
this one.
It's got the kid that played quarterback in Friday Night Lights, whoever his name is. I didn't write it down. But it was directed by Roxanne Benjamin, who, to throw back to Decade of Horror, she did an episode in, she worked on Southbound. She's done an episode in Sabrina and Riverdale and stuff like that. It wasn't a bad movie. It was just kind of, a standard par for the course movie. It's about these creepy kids. They fall into a hole and then they come out and they're not the same. And then they're like framing the dad and he thinks he's going crazy because he's the only one that knows. And then they figure it all out at the end. It just kind of is what it is. It wasn't bad. It was just average. On to bad. And I think this is where we're probably going to kick up because this is a bad movie. And I honestly hate to say it. And I'm waiting for the wincing. This is from director Chris McKay. And that's Renfield. Renfield sucks. Like, it's just not a very good movie. And it's a shame because when we saw Renfield, everybody was like, I think the reaction by most people to the trailer was, this is going to be a terrible movie because they've casted Nick Cage as Dracula. And that's the part of the movie that fucking works. That's the best part of the movie. Nicolas Cage as pretentious Dracula is awesome. And they bury it. They bury it in him behind this whiny tale of like therapy awareness and codependency and self-help and recovery. And it's got like it does have some flashy like death scenes. But it's like it's not scary enough to be like what it wants to be. It's not gory enough to be what it wants to be. It's not funny enough to be what it wants to be. And the best part of the movie, it's not a cameo. Like, he's definitely throughout the movie, but like not enough. And I mean this because there's like good Nick Cage, there's bad Nick Cage that's good, then there's bad Nick Cage that's bad. This is honestly like good Nick Cage. Like, he's doing excellent work to the point where I was like, I can't believe that we've had this chance to have Nicolas Cage Dracula and we didn't make a better Dracula movie out of it, because there's something there, man. Like, it's kind of Christopher Lee-ish. Like, if we were to make a legit Dracula movie starring him, I get it, because I think he nails it. I think he lands it. I just think the movie's story and jokes are cheap and they don't hit well. And ultimately, I did not like the movie overall. I did not like the movie, but I love Nick Cage.
This is one of those movies that, like you had with Winnie the Pooh, I had no interest in this movie whatsoever. Like none. Like less.
You should.
Than none. So
it's worth watching just for him.
Okay, I'll give it a watch then. If it's worth watching, I'll give it a watch.
Everything else
like Nick Cage.
Was a letdown. My next two, I've got two more honorable mentions, and these are actually, like, now things are starting to get better. I didn't mind these movies. They just didn't make the cut. The first one is The Outwaters. Either of you guys watch The Outwaters? You ever heard of it?
No, never heard of it.
No, I never heard
The Outwaters is a found footage movie.
that's my jam.
Be careful. The person that made it, I wrote his name down. His name's Robbie Banfitch. He wrote it, directed it, and starred in it.
Ooh. So
and
he's
it's
like
a found footage movie. Yeah. All right. So here's the thing. This movie is not for everybody. I imagine if you're Googling this movie right now, you might see some very low scores.
Oh, yeah.
I would go as far as to say I think a lot of people probably hate this movie. I didn't. It's disorienting. It's convoluted. It's nonsensical. It doesn't do a lot of things well. Like, if you want to watch a movie and walk away from that movie understanding everything you just seen, this is not a good movie for you. But I'm not gonna lie. I watched the whole thing and like was captivated, actually. Like, I was trying to understand. I was in it. I wanted to see what it was. It does. It's kind of, I mean, it's lo-fi. There are effects, but like, they're not crazy effects. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of shadows. It's a lot of what you can't see, a lot of camera shaking and stuff, but like, it's interesting. It's like, there's a part where it really goes off the rails where it gets like, I want to say Cloverfield, but not like you see a giant monster terrorizing everything Cloverfield, but like, there's like this big, event happening that you don't understand. You don't know what's happening, but you're trying to figure it out. It's kind of like that. And I think that mystery captivated me somewhat. It's blood drenched. It's soaked. I mean, it's got a lot of that in there. And when it was done, like I had to go and like listen to podcasts about what the hell I just watched. I was like, somebody explain to me what I was supposed to take from this. So in that way, it was like interesting in like a Color Out of Space, Mandy type. Like you may not get it the first time, the second time, the third time, but I did, and I enjoyed it more than the others that I've talked about so far. And then my last honorable mention is
And
The Wrath of
Tubi.
Is it?
Oh,
So
there you go.
yes, for those who want to watch it, it's on Tubi right now, so you can watch it for free. So there you go.
My last honorable mention is The Wrath of Becky.
Hmm.
That make you guys
that I
cut at
want
all?
to watch.
It did not. I didn't see the first one. That's why I didn't
Okay.
watch this one.
I was like I didn't put Cocaine Bear on my list either because I don't think it's a horror movie. And like the Wrath of Becky probably isn't a horror movie either.
Okay.
Becky was a house invasion movie. Starring Lulu Wilson, who I love. She's one of my favorites, and I really liked her Ouija movie. I thought it was great, actually. And she's back. The best part of this movie is it stars Sean William Scott from American Pie
Wow.
as the villain.
Nice.
Whoa.
It is nice. But they took this house invasion movie that was about like this house invasion revenge tale, and they really just like turned the dial up to a comedic effect. It's kind of comedy. Like if you're looking for a funny laugh horror movie, like put horror in quotes, The Wrath of Becky might be like my suggestion because it's funny. It's got funny jokes, but it's like people's heads are exploding and there's dumb things. It's like an action movie, really. It's more like a Rambo than it is like a horror movie. So I kind of missed that part. It wasn't scary enough. It's fine. It's middling. It's okay.
Okay.
So with that, let's get started. Let's only hear your number 10s. What's your number 10, Delvin?
My number 10 is The Blackening.
My number 10 is also The Blackening.
I didn't get to see that yet.
Oh, see? There we go.
It just makes the cut. Like I was looking at my list and I was like, I can't believe it. It's right there. You know?
I'm surprised we both have that on our list. But I really enjoyed it. I think it's a generic horror film.
Yeah, that's
But
my
the way
big thing
they
about it.
do
It's
it-
just kind of generic.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole premise of the movie is you have a horror film with a predominantly black cast, and you're trying to figure out, like, all right, if you got a whole black cast, who's going to die, apparently, because, usually the trope for horror films is the black guy usually dies first. So,
And it
it's
invades
kinda-
the
I guess you kinda
tropes.
call it,
And it's got, like racist cues that it subverts and stuff like that.
yeah,
I didn't think that part of the
stereotype
movie,
cues.
based on the marketing, like the way that you would expect it, I didn't think that was very clever at all. If anything, that was just kind of vanilla on that part. I was expecting more from the movie in that regard.
Yeah, the reason why this one made my list is because I guess for people who are not into horror films, like for example, my girlfriend does not like horror films.
Yeah, no, I know where you're
It's
going
not
with
her
this.
thing.
I would agree with you.
This is kind of like baby's first horror film.
Yeah, it's a good
Not
recommendation.
too scary.
Yeah.
It's just scary enough where they were like, this wasn't so bad. They can get into it. They can enjoy the plot. They can laugh
It's
at
not
some
too.
points.
It's not too gory. It's not too bloody. It's not too tense. It's a decent little ride. Yeah.
Yeah, and particularly for black people who want to see themselves in horror films. I know that's a thing. We don't necessarily always see ourselves in movies. This is a cool little movie to watch and enjoy. Because, like I said, my girl doesn't like horror films, and the first thing that when she watches, like, oh, black people, that's pretty cool. And then she starts seeing the little funny things with it, like the game board and stuff like that. She kind of like was digging that type of stuff, wanted to know more. And then she saw characters that reminded her of people that she knows. She's like, oh, this is kind of funny. And she kind of dug it. And then while watching the movie, she connected with the characters so much, she was like, I don't want to see these people die. So she kind of got a kick out of it and enjoyed it that way. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool to know. So for an outsider who doesn't want to get too scared, but kind of just want to get a good feeling for a horror movie, this is a pretty good recommendation for that.
My big takeaway was I think the trailer is better than the movie. Like the trailer sets you up for like I was expecting another shoe to drop at some point, almost like a cabin in the woods type thing, and it just never comes. It is just kind of straight down the middle horror. Which, had I known about this movie and like done any background on it before I watched it, I might have expected, because this was directed by Tim Story, who I don't necessarily follow, but he did Barbershop, Taxi, Ride Along, and Fantastic Four. Like seriously, like right down the middle of vanilla movies, man. You know, like. So like I probably should have expected this, and I just wasn't as aware. I wasn't knowledgeable enough to go in. But I will say the characters are enjoyable. The story's fine. It's well shot. It's a nice movie to look at. There's nothing particularly wrong with it outside of expectations, maybe. It is, all around pretty decent. And I think your call out for a horror movie recommendation to folks that aren't into the genre, I think is spot on. I think this is a good cabin in the woods story that people can get behind. It just kind of is your classic horror movie. Like these friends go to a house and like this dude tries to kill them, and there's like some laughs and some jokes, but there's also some scares, and then they kind of just wrap it up at the end. It is exactly what you think it is. There's nothing else there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's also my number 10. So Josh, what's your number 10?
Well, I want to disclaim my list. I want to issue a disclaimer. My list is all movies that are new to me that I watched this year, with the exception of one movie, which I watched last year, but it was after we recorded. And that being said, a lot of these are interchangeable to a degree. I don't think I saw anything this year that I particularly think was the best thing I've ever seen. I think I probably agree. A lot of my expectations were way higher than what the movie has delivered. That being said, I still enjoyed most of them, just not as much as I was expecting to. So I'll just jump right in with my number 10, and that's Renfield. Nice. I actually really liked Renfield for what it is. It's not a great movie, but it's funny. It does have horror aspects to it, but it's almost just barely a horror film. And if you take out the gore, it's not a horror film.
Yeah.
It's Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult trying to see who can act harder. And they both succeed at doing that.
What do you think of my take on Nick? Do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I mean, he's all over the place in a good way, but he's also like not in the film.
I think the manic Nick Cage thing works for Dracula.
Yeah, well, he's
like that works.
Oh yeah, it suits the character very well. I think Ben Schwartz was the character of the movie. Like he really Sonic himself stole the movie, because he got to be funny, and that's what he does. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was fun, entertaining watch. But yeah, it barely edged out Cocaine Bear, and pushed Cocaine Bear off my list, because Cocaine Bear is just.
It's not a horror movie.
Bad movie. It's not a horror movie.
Oh, I liked it.
I only put it on there because it's like a creature feature, which I really like. But
yeah, this is dumb.
It's just so bad. It's just dumb,
but I enjoyed it.
I hated it.
I still haven't watched that.
Well, you hated it. Wow. I enjoyed Cocaine Bear. I had a fun time watching it. It was kind of fun. You know what? Not gonna lie to you. This might help. I'm happy to disclose it. I was high when we watched it.
So was I.
Okay, I was saying, it may have made it
did not help.
My wife and I, there's a hotel that lives in the parking lot next to my movie theater in the town nearby. So like we went out, we had a date night where we went out and got a hotel room and went to the movies. I totally got high, walked to the movie theater, we watched Cocaine Bear, and it was awesome.
Right, okay. Well, I must have been taking some sativa instead of
I'm also just I'm a mark for Ray Liotta. Phoenix, Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Like I love him, everything. So
there was definitely good actors in it.
Here for that.
I don't know. But yeah, so I still think Renfield is certainly watchable, but barely horror. Yeah.
Okay. Well, since I didn't get to introduce my 10, I will take the lead and I will take number 9. And my number 9 is No One Will Save You, the new horror movie that just released on Hulu.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
interesting.
I'm glad you have that one. That's also on my list. Let me look at what's on my list. I have higher than 9, though. I have it at number
Ooh, don't
5.
spoil it.
My number
Don't
5.
spoil it.
I
Oh.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, we
Delvin,
can read them as we
that's
go.
too high, Delvin.
No One Will Save You is starring Caitlin Dever. And it's a movie that just released on Hulu. Is it only on Hulu?
Yes.
Yes.
That's like the most interesting thing. So it's an alien movie. And Josh sent me the trailer for this maybe 2 months ago in our Discord.
Yeah.
And I was really into the trailer because I like a good alien abduction movie. Like I talk about Signs way too much, probably more than most people. And I was kind of expecting that. And No One Will Save You subverted all expectations. I was not ready for what I was about to watch.
Agreed.
It is like almost zero dialogue. It's like
Yeah,
A Quiet
it is.
Place.
Yeah.
Only like one full spoken line. Everything else is just screams,
Grunts and screams
gasp.
and stuff.
Yeah.
It's directed by Brian Duffield, who did The Babysitter, Love and Monsters, Cocaine Bear, and Quarantine.
I love Love and Monsters.
Yeah, I love The Babysitter. I love Quarantine. So, my lasting takeaways from this is you can tell I'm even torn even saying this. It's too good for a made for TV movie. Like it looks way too good. I think the CG is pretty decent with as much alien as they're showing. They show you the alien the whole damn time of the movie. This isn't like you watch it for an hour and then you see the alien at the end. The alien is there from the start of the movie the whole time. So it's in that sense, it's pretty good. The plot, the emotional storyline that wraps up at the end, I also think is of quality. It's good. It's has a good message. I think it spends too much time kind of repetitive. It's too much of her just running around and tripping and falling. Like if that bothers you, I know that's a trope and I don't even mind it. It's just a lot of it. There's like 5 sequences where she's just running into a house and then running out of the house and running to another house and running out of that. It's a lot of running. There's a lot of running. I was digging the body snatchers type thing that they're going for. So like ultimately I like it and I liked the ending and kind of where it resolves. I enjoyed it. I think it's better. I think it's better than The Blackening. I think it's better than Renfield. I think it's better than Outwaters. It's better than most of the movies that I've talked about so far. I didn't love it for some of those other reasons, but generally speaking, I thought it was pretty good. Had this come to movie, I think. So was this? Do you know any background on this? I don't follow the industry much or like projects, but like part of me wants to say like they probably made this movie to put in theaters, and then maybe in screen testing or whatever they realized it was probably going to bomb, right? And so they just went direct to TV.
I would think so. That's what it seems like.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was like, it's too good to be a direct to TV movie, but what does that even mean anymore? When direct to TV means Netflix or Hulu or Max or whatever.
It's Hulu. It's Disney. So yeah.
So it's not quite the same.
Oh, yeah, it did. It did. I guess it opened to theaters on September 19th. It must have been a limited release.
Oh, so they did give it a run. Okay.
But it's the reason why it's on Hulu is because it's a Hulu Originals film. Just like Hellraiser and some of those other ones. Those are Hulu films. So
I don't watch them all because generally I've watched a few of them and I've been let down.
Yeah.
Hulu has like an ongoing Hulu Originals horror line.
Yeah, just like Prey. Prey was a Hulu original.
This is better than most of those. Most of the ones that I've watched. There was a time, I think it was the year before last. I'm not sure if they still do it because I'm not as the most active Hulu user. Hulu, the year before last, had a new horror movie every month. It was like a Valentine themed one and a Thanksgiving themed one. It was almost like a anthology series of movies.
Yeah, and like the Pookie or Puku or whatever the heck that thing was.
If you were to compare this to those, this was way better. I like this one way more than most of those.
Yeah.
So that was my number 9. Delvin?
Well, I really enjoyed this movie. And maybe it's because I literally just finished watching it not too long ago before we started recording.
If you say Insidious, you're off the show.
No, I'm talking about the movie we just talked about. I might well talk about the same movie
well, that's you can save it for your number 5, but
I might well get it out the way now because there's no point in like.
All right.
Yeah, but I really dug this movie. I think it's just kind of like it takes the whole alien big gray monster thing and kind of it doesn't turn it on his head,
but it does subvert.
But it kind of gives you, it subverts it and it gives you all the tropes
The feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The feet. The feet
Yeah.
like really raised that movie up a notch. I was like, whoa, look at this thing.
yeah, yeah. And I kind of dig that. It kind of takes the tropes and stuff, and it kind of adds like little layers to it. Like everything that you would think about aliens, like coming in, they're gonna come probe us. They're gonna do this. They're gonna do that. It has in this movie, but it makes it like it adds context to it. It adds different things to it, and it makes you think like, oh, that's pretty interesting how they do that. I really dug this movie a lot. I was surprised. I said, let me watch this because I was getting down to the wire. I said, let me watch one more horror movie before we start recording. I said, let me watch this one.
You chose better than I did.
And
I'm telling you, it's gonna last a whole episode. I hate this fucking movie. Insidious 5 sucks. It's so bad.
Yeah, and I just really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. It's great. I highly recommend it.
You know all these horror franchises that we've loathed over the years because they get like 4 or 5 more sequels than they should?
Yeah.
It's Insidious.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That makes sense.
That is the poster child for this for me now. Okay, 9.
I guess my number 9
Mm-hmm.
is a horror action film. It's Resident Evil Death Island.
Oh, okay.
No. Okay. Interesting.
Just, oh no.
Sorry. That's
It
just
is-
my gut reaction.
Josh's like, did I say that out loud?
Oops.
No, that's fine.
That's not a dishonorable
'Cause it-
mention.
No. I loved it because if you like the dumb, cheesy plots of Resident Evil movies,
Yeah.
the animated ones are the best ones. Like the live action is terrible. Every other aspect of Resident Evil is terrible, but the animated ones are the closest to the video games that you're gonna get. It looks like the video games. It feels like the video games. Watching it, Chris Redfield and Leon are as ridiculously powered as they are.
I watched the one in is it the White House?
I think it's one in the White House. Yeah.
I watched that one. That's the last one I watched. I didn't particularly come away with much to say about it, but I watched it.
But I kind of thought this was kind of just a dumb, fun Resident Evil movie. Like, oh, this is cool. That all the tropes that you expect in a Resident Evil game is in the movie. The big giant monster, the stupid quotes that Jill has to say, shooting and jumping in the air, shooting and blowing up stuff. Yeah, it's just a fun, dumb horror film. You got the zombies and everybody's getting murdered by the zombies at a ridiculous rate, except Chris and Leon and all of them. They're fighting the zombies off. Like, this is just a dumb, fun movie. When I finished watching, I'm like, all right, that was pretty funny. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't awful. It was just like, okay, this is what I expect from Resident Evil. Kind of dug it.
Okay. Nice. Josh?
Yeah, my number 9 was recommended to me from a Discord I'm in, exclusively horror Discord, and it's called Caveat.
How dare
Have
you
you
don't
heard
have
of
it in
this movie?
Caveat?
Yeah,
That's a new one for me.
I have not.
it's on Shudder.
Ooh.
It is one of those movies where, the name of the movie is pretty quickly understood as to why. But I'll give you the premise. The premise is I believe British or like Welsh or Australian. I should know, or Scottish. It's a foreign language, not foreign language. Sorry,
Yeah.
accent. Foreign accent. It's in English. The premise is this guy who is down on his luck and needs money is offered a job, and his job is he has to care for this girl whose uncle is looking for someone who will take care of her because she is suffering from a type of not mental illness but like mental break since the passing of her father and disappearance of her mother. And he's offered £200 or dollars a day to go stay at this house for a week. And he accepts after asking some questions, and the day to go there arrives, and he meets up with the girl's uncle, and he's trying to figure out where he's going, and the guy goes, "Oh, it's over here," and it's on an island, a little island in the middle of nowhere. They had to take a boat to it. It's the only way to the island and back from the island. And he's like, wait a sec. You didn't say anything about this. He's like, what's the big deal? So they take him to the house. He shows him the girl.
Is it a rowboat?
It is a rowboat, yes.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I won't spoil anything important, but this is where the caveat comes in. The title of the movie. They get to the house. The uncle shows them the girl. She's in the corner. She's having what he calls one of her episodes where she sits with her hands over her eyes. She doesn't react to sound, noise, anything. So like the uncle is a dick, and he puts a lampshade on her head, and he's like, "See, she didn't do anything." And he's like, "Okay, fine." And he's like, "Oh, one more thing. It's not a big deal." And the guy's like, "Okay, what?" And then that's where I'll stop telling you what the caveat is. It is a what's the word I want to use? It's a fine movie. It's not great. I think it has its strong moments. But ultimately, and I don't know if this is just where I am with horror now, but I was bored for a large portion of the movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's because I'm just, I don't know, maybe I think Decade of Horror has desensitized me a little bit to what most people find scary.
Possibly.
I think it is a scary movie. I just didn't. And honestly, that's a running theme with all my movies. I wasn't scared at any movie I watched on my list, which is odd for me.
Interesting.
I think, I don't know if I would say the same, but I mean, I get what you're.
My brain is broken, I think, is what is happening.
I mean, ultimately, I get what you're saying. We've watched so many, and I don't think it's just Decade of Horror. I mean, anybody that's watched as many horror movies, like a enthusiastic horror fan, like you've kind of seen it.
Yeah.
That's why when something that comes along that's novel, that's why I think takes such a hold.
I agree.
Because we've just all kind of seen so many of the same things.
I think my number one movie did scare me. I will say that. But yeah, I say if you have Shudder, it's definitely worth a watch. I think it's only 90 minutes, so it's an easy thing to get through. It's not like sitting through a 3 hour slog fest.
Nice.
But check it out. It has a pretty cool opening, which kind of sort of pays off at some point. But I think it's worth a watch at least. That's why it's on my top 10 and not on my honorable mention list.
Nice. Tangent here.
Okay.
What do you mean by scared?
Like it's something that sits with me and maybe pops up in the dreams.
Oh, okay. So that's really scared.
Or it makes me like
if you're taken away from the movie and you're still that's really scary.
Because
that's
I think
embedded in your
when I'm
brain
sitting
scared.
to watch a horror movie, I think my expectation is I expect a jump or something, and that's my expectation.
I often tell myself that even though I'm not like scared to sleep or scared to go outside or like when you were a kid, you might be scared. I haven't felt like that forever. But there are moments in a movie where I wince, like, whoa, I got to remind myself that's a flavor of scared.
Sure, that's the gore aspect gets me sometimes.
Or if I maybe I slightly tense up, maybe I like gripping my armchair or something like that's a piece of being scared. And I still find those feelings. Or a jump, something catches me off guard, I'm like, that's still scary.
Yeah. Yep.
Even if I just take it in stride.
I always like the horror films that make me think long after I've watched it. Like, those ones are the ones that kind of stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess you could say, like the first Saw was like that with me. Just the ones in general. Like they're playing ones. Just after you watch it, you still think about like The Strangers. I kind of thought like, because of the first.
The Strangers is terrifying. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
That's why I love it so much.
Saw 2, I think about almost every day of my life. That the hypodermic needle pit.
That's definitely scary.
Oh yeah.
I never will ever forget that in my entire life.
I saw 1 and 2. Saw 1 through 3.
Vividly remember that scene.
Were really good.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, Ocho, number 8. Mine is Scream 6.
Oh, that is also my number 8.
Look at us.
That is also my number 8.
Whoa! Has that ever happened before? Whoa! Try Yahtzee! This is from director Matt Bettinelli, who returns, but he's known from previous work, Southbound, again, making another call here, VHS, and a movie I really liked a lot, Ready or Not.
I love it.
best thing that I can say about Scream 6 is that I don't really like Scream that much, and I found it tolerable. It is good. It's a good Scream movie. It took me a while to get to the point where I was like, it's good, but it is good. I could have used more Ortega. I could have used a bit more. I'm still not into the Scream thing anymore. The Scream, let's out scream and be more Scream. I'm waiting for the movie to where there's 8 kids and we find at the end that they're all the killer. They've all killed each other, and it's like The Office where they're all just pointing knives at each other. Like it's so up its own butt most times. But this one did the Scream thing decently well. It was fun to watch. I think this was the best Ghostface in more than a few movies. This might be higher on my list because I thought Scream 5 was terrible. Like, I really didn't like that one. So the fact that I watched this one with, some enjoyment, like, is just such a, beyond expectations take. But ultimately, at the end of the day, again, this year wasn't like full of movies that I love. Scream 6 gets in. I thought it was pretty good. Number 8.
Yeah.
I also thought
Same.
it was pretty good. You want to go, Josh? You can give your thoughts on it first.
No. I'll talk more about Scream 6 when we talk about my number 7 movie.
Okay.
So Delvin, you go for it.
But I dug it. I thought it was cool. I feel like we're getting at that point with the Scream movies where we've already been there, where it's stale. Because, all right, now,
dude,
how much can we tell?
The thing that I hate
over and over again.
So Scream was a pseudo satire on horror, but still a horror movie. And what that has evolved, especially as they try to Scream, is that it itself has become the thing that the first one was meant to subvert. It is that now. And that's the part, that's what I mean when I'm like, can we just make Scream a good horror movie again? Scream just gets back. There's not a horror franchise that I feel like needs a better reboot than Scream. Like, it needs a start over, a do-over. Like, move on. We just keep going in circles.
You got to the same point I was going to get to. The whole thing that I'm not digging about it anymore is the fact that we keep going to this same family and this same group of people. And I feel like, end it. Stop going to these people. The way people complain about the Skywalkers in Star Wars is how I feel about the people Sydney and everybody in Scream. Like, please stop bringing these people here. Like,
put me out of my misery already.
People, the Botox is failing. Let's let these people rest. Like, this is enough. Like, stop bringing.
The thing that I think got people to take hold of Scream. I mean, obviously, time and place. It was the '90s. It was different. It was new. But I think the slimmer of hope that it grabbed onto was its originality. And I just feel like that's all been lost. It's been lost for some time. And I remember when Scream 5 came out, they're all like, oh, we're like, Wes would be so proud. I'm like, I'm like revolting. I'm like, I don't think so. I think he'd be like, be creative, do your own thing, break the rules. You know why? Because that's what Scream did. Like that's like its legacy. That's its thing. And it's like I'm craving that now from the franchise.
Please stop bringing back Courtney Cox.
But the thing that
you don't have to worry about that anymore.
The thing that I get back from Scream fans is then that wouldn't be Scream, and that's where I'm always like, maybe I'm not a Scream enough fan to weigh in on that part because I don't claim this as my franchise, but So I kind of understand it, but then stop doing it, I guess. Now you're entering that, maybe how I feel about Texas Chainsaw. I was like, we're leave it alone. For the love of God, please leave it alone.
Well, to be fair, the TV series didn't have those characters in it, and people enjoyed it. They
never watched
do Scream without having these same characters and showing.
And to me, it's not necessarily the characters. I'm not as hard on it just being the characters you are. I mean, I do agree with you generally. I would like to see either progression or a reboot, but to me it's just it's meta for meta's sake. It's meta and we've gone too far. It's too much now.
Yeah, I do.
I dig the ideal of Ghostface being more than just like he's like a figure. Like anybody can be Ghostface. Ghostface can happen anywhere. It doesn't necessarily happen to these same people over and over again. Like let it be
Right.
somewhere else.
I wouldn't mind having
Like,
a Ghostface with maybe more motivation, a more sinister Ghostface, more intelligent Ghostface
Yes.
would be nice. But I do like Ghostface in this movie. I think it was probably my favorite thing about him is I thought his kills and stuff were like the bodega scene.
Yeah.
One of my favorite
Great.
Scream scenes in many years. Like I thought that was
I love that scene a lot.
really good. Yeah. So
I like that scene because it was Ghostface in the real world. Like,
Yeah.
this is how it's supposed to happen. Like, yeah, he's in a store.
and even like the
people
whole
are
the
reacting.
setup, the tension, the terrorizing, like it was all good. That scene was really good. So, like I said, I like it. I don't want to just crap on it the whole time. I thought it was good. I want to put that on record for any long-standing decade of horror fans. I liked a Scream movie. Don't come at me.
It's in your top 10, so it's
At Delvin.
definitively good.
Yes,
Come for him. Don't come for me.
that's fine. I enjoyed it. It's my number 8. So
Josh, you want to kick off our 7s?
All right, so listen, my number 7 is Scream 5.
Oh, wow.
And I think I agree with you guys about your points about Scream 6 as far as it takes Scream to the next level, but having not seen Scream 5 first, like till this, like before I just watched that, I thought it was a nice like revisit to Scream where they tried to like rewrite it a little bit.
It's like
I
a
really
greatest
like-
hits.
Yeah, I really like
Yeah.
Jenna Ortega a lot in that.
Same.
What I didn't like so
She's
much
great.
about Scream 6 was, well, it's not that I didn't like it. I didn't watch Scream. I haven't seen Scream 4 still, right? So I didn't have any attachment to Kirby, who is a big part of Scream 6 in a way.
Yep.
So for Scream 5, I was just like, okay, and I agree. Also, it just kind of recycles those beats, right? Which does get
Yeah.
old. Like
Yep.
it's the same thing. The high school kids, they all have their tropes. Just because you change race and gender of the characters doesn't mean you're creating new characters. You're giving them the same dialogue. You're just updating it to the year that it's being made. So I think that's kind of like the lazy way to change it. That being said, I also really enjoyed a lot about the movie itself. I like how they got Dewey back. I do like this trope of like Sydney is smart. She's so smart, but she still falls for the final girl tropes of, I know I'm not supposed to go here, but somehow I still end up back here.
Sure.
And you kind of have to watch the movie to see how they're going to make that happen, which is what I was wondering the whole time. Oh, how are they going to get her back? She's obviously coming back. How are they going to do it? I like the new cast. I like Jenna Ortega's sister. I wish I knew. I could probably pull up her name. Well, of course, this is not going to be as easy as I wanted it to be. Melissa
I'd fill air
Barrera.
for you, but I
Yeah.
can't.
Melissa Barrera, I think is her name. I really like her. Apparently she has another, she was in The Heights. Okay. And it looks like she has a horror movie called Bed Rest, which I should probably check out. I thought she was a great actress. She's not too hard to look at. And she has a good character arc because she's like I'm not going to put up with it. Stands up for herself in a way that Sydney kind of didn't do in the first couple Scream movies. So,
Yeah, that I agree with.
yeah, so I do like it. I think if you took a couple of years apart from the two, for me, when I saw it, I might like Scream 6 better. But because I saw them so close together, I think I liked Scream 5 more than Scream 6. But I agree. I think we're kind of stuck with one more for this trilogy because that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But I would love to see them reinvent Scream.
Got to get the
in a
insidious red
different
door
way.
of Scream.
I know. But you're right. For Scream 6, like seeing Ghostface in public, in broad daylight, in like just doing what he's doing, brought a whole new level, like a Jason level to him.
It was the
and
haunting.
I really enjoyed that. Yes.
Yes.
It was the haunting. It felt more menacing, and I liked this ghost face a lot. I think that did the most for me with the movie. I was like, this is good. Do this more of this, please.
So they pushed the ghost. They pushed
I've got
Ghostface
that
in the right direction, but not the teens. They really messed up with the main characters, and I think that that's a make it or break it for me for Scream 6, 7, whatever's next 7. But yeah, that's my number 7. Is Scream 5.
Nice.
Okay.
More Ortega would have been nice. Could use more.
She's great.
Yes.
My number 7 is Megan, from Gerard Johnstone.
Yeah.
Of Housebound lore. I have no notes for this. I didn't write this. I watched. Wow. I watched this some time ago. Generally speaking, I think it's a good horror movie.
It's also a good comedy.
Yeah. Like it is. Megan is exactly what you think Megan is. Like I don't have anything to go too far on it. Like it's tropey, and it's it's got like its super climactic ending, and it goes all Pacific Rim and everything. And sure, why the hell not? It's a horror movie. You got to do something. It's fun. But it is like, does the AI haunting thing, the Child's Play reboot thing, the thing that exactly what you think when you watch the trailer, that's the movie. Could have been a little bit more scarier. Maybe if like memory serves, I would have liked it. Maybe Megan went a little harder. And guess what? Megan 2 is totally coming. So maybe they'll turn up the volume a little bit. It was fine.
Let me ask you a question.
It's a decent movie.
Did you watch the original cut or the unrated cut?
I have no idea.
You would know.
They're different.
Unrated cut has more violence.
Way more violence. That's the one I watched. It's a lot more.
Give me a violent scene that's in the unrated one that isn't in the rated one.
The boy that's teasing her.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
The full on, like.
I think so. Yeah,
destroys him.
Like, oh yeah, in the woods. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's unrated.
You gotta remember, man. I mean, I know you guys. We've watched these a long time. Like, I found Megan is tame, which that's what Megan's supposed to be. Megan's not supposed to be going super hard.
No, but in the regular cut, you don't see anything with him.
Oh, really?
You don't see anything in the regular cut.
Oh, that's too tame.
Yeah,
that's too tame.
It's implied.
Okay, no.
It's implied. In the regular cut, a lot of the deaths are implied. In the unrated cut, they show the deaths.
No, I saw those. So yeah, I liked it. It's 7. It's good enough to be 7, but I'm not like gonna go super hard for it.
I agree. I dug it. I thought it was a fun, dumb horror film. I think.
I also think this is a good pick for those people that don't routinely watch a lot of horror movies.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's the demo they're going for. I think that's the point.
Yes.
Of Megan, like they're nailing exactly what they want it to be. Megan is like your wife's horror movie. That's exactly what it's going to be. Yeah.
My wife watched it with me, so yes,
of course. Did she like it? My wife liked it. She's like, "This is good." I'm like, "Of course you think it's good."
Stand horror movies, and she did like it. Yeah,
that's exactly what they're trying to do. Like mission accomplished.
Yeah.
This is the TikTok horror movie. Like it has the whole scene with Megan dancing and stuff like that. This is the type of movie that people like who like those type of things will enjoy. It's fine. It's not. I don't think it's scary personally. No. I don't think it's scary at all.
Yeah, not really. It's more interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's not scary in the sense that it scares you. The scariness is like an AI contemplating the horror. That's very like a Child's Play thing, but it ratcheted up a bit. It's the premeditation that this inanimate object has. That's the scary. That's what makes it scary. It itself is not very scary.
I agree.
It's like a thriller.
Not very scary at all.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it. It's a thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
Agreed.
Okay. So we're on to 6s. My number 6 is Smile.
Ooh.
Which I liked a lot.
Shit, I forgot I saw this movie. I did see this movie.
Resonated with you.
This comes from Parker Finn, and a sequel is coming. Sequel's been greenlit for Smile 2. Smile is delectably like creepy. It just is creepy. Like we knew that from the trailer's creepy. And like I think it pulls the creepy off well. Here's the thing. I'm not going to spoil it, but I have to say what I really liked about my lasting, because I also don't have any notes. I'm least prepared. I'm going a lot off of memory. My lasting memory from this movie is I was literally shouting out loud towards the end of this movie. I was like, do not do what I think you're about to do. Do not be this movie. Please do not ruin such a good thing. And it does. And I was like, no. And then it doesn't. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
So like that's my favorite thing about Smile. I was like, oh, they did not do the generic horror movie BS that so often happens. Smile's creepy. Like scary. Like if you're like, oh, the movies aren't scary, Smile's scary. Like Smile, I think if like horror imagery is the type of thing that sticks with you, Smile will stick with you because you'll never forget that smile. Like it is creepy.
Yeah. It's a little
so it's
unnerving.
good. Yeah. I thought
I
it was
wasn't
good.
scared, but I was like unnerved by that's a little weird.
Like I think that comes from we've watched like if you have never watched horror movies, I think a lot of people would find Smile. Like my wife, I think was pretty free. My wife was like, we need to watch some TikToks. Like I need to come down from this for a little bit. Like Smile's pretty creepy. It gets under your skin a little bit. So it's good enough to be my number 6.
Want me to get my number 6 then, or you want to go, Josh?
Go for it.
My number 6 is Infinity Pool.
My number 5.
See, I really
We're a lot more alike than we thought.
yeah, surprisingly so. I really was fascinated by this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was engaging. It kept me interested. The plot of it. I don't know how deep I want to go into the plot. I think people should just see it and don't know anything about it because I didn't know anything about it when I went into it. Only thing I knew about it was my girl, what her name? Mia Goth.
Mia Goth, my scream queen. She's the best.
She is just in the movie and she is being Mia Goth. That's the best way I can describe it.
She's the best.
Any movie I see her in, I know I'm going to either see her boobs or see her do something freaky. and she did not disappoint with this movie. And
to me, it's none of that. For me, it's her look, it's her face, it's her eyes. Like she is such horror movie vixen. Like she's got it written all over. Like she's perfectly typecasted for this.
Yeah,
like she could have a whole career where she just does horror movies. Perfect. It's like her and Anya. It's like the same way.
Yes.
Like just they look perfectly built for horror movies.
Yeah, she has this kind of vixen feel to her, that temptress. I think she kind of plays that in this movie as well too. I really dug this story. I thought it was fascinating.
I like the story a lot.
I wanted to know more about the universe in this world. Like, how is this working? I don't want to say too much because I think people should watch it. Essentially, I'm
going to say more, so I can start saying things if you don't want to say things.
Yeah, say what you want to say because I don't want to go
so
too far.
I'll jump you a bit, Josh, since we're on it. My number 5 is Infinity Pool. This comes from Brandon Cronenberg, son of the ever famous David Cronenberg. He did Possessor, and I love it. Infinity Pool is great. It might be one of my favorite movies. It'd be higher if the other movies I think just maybe didn't hit a little harder. It's got a lot of things going for it. It's got body horror. Again, Mia Goth. It does. I think the thing that really gets me is it's got like that whole tourism horror thing that we've seen before, where I think it borrows a lot of that. Like, like Americans go somewhere to like live it up and be debaucherous, and then things go bad, and it's like kind of hostile. But the comp that I would pull for this movie the most, and I think I've already told this to Delvin, is Us. It reminds me a lot of that. There's like this whole body double clone thing, but it's like has an ethical dilemma as to why it's happening, and then like the haunting that comes from that, and then when you add that all into like the hostile thing that's going on, like there's a complexity to Infinity Pool that's really awesome. Like its story into what's going on. And then, it's psychedelic, and there's orgies and shit. And like, it's all kind of, there's a lot going on with Infinity Pool.
And it's a fascinating social question with the movie.
Yeah. That's where the ethical thing that comes from, I think is the thing that'll stick with people more. Not super scary. More captivating than scary, which is more like a Cronenberg kind of trope. Yeah. It's kind of par for the course. Yeah. Like that.
I dug it.
Same. Yeah, number 5. Josh, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is The Menu.
I didn't watch that one. I forgot all about that one.
I didn't either. Mike Fowler told me I should watch that one.
It's more suspense than horror, more thriller than horror, but
I think that's why I didn't watch it.
I really enjoyed the mystery of it. It's certainly, I think it certainly fits in horror, right? Like it fits in this landscape of
let me throw you one. My take from the trailer that we saw.
It's not what you think.
My take was the evil chef that's feeding people.
It's not what you think.
All right, so that makes me more into that. Honestly, that's why I didn't watch it. So it's like, so that actually does more for me than not.
I'll say this now for people who maybe not have watched it yet, who want to. It is not people eating people. So you can just uncheck that box.
Okay.
That is not what's happening in this movie.
Good to know.
That helps.
I don't want to say too much about it because I do think that the mystery makes it interesting, but I'll say this. You know, it's Anya Taylor-Joy is playing a character who is, speaking of Nicholas Hoult, back in the picture, is his date to this very rich person dining experience on an island, of course. Ray Fiennes is the chef, and this is his restaurant. And he invites these people, and he invites them for specific reasons. And that's all I'll say about it. I think it's intriguing. It's fun. It's more fun than it is scary, but it is also, it's up there with some of the better thrillers that I've seen in a little while. I just think it's better than every movie I've mentioned so far.
Is it like a whodunit? Are you trying to like figure it out?
It's not necessary. It's a why done it. It's
okay.
It's like you're trying to figure out what's going on, what's the motivations, why is this happening. It's kind of a social commentary on a lot of things, which I still think is starting to work for horror these days. If they don't lean too heavy to that, like if it's
that's like its own at this point. That's like its own horror subgenre.
Yeah, it's like its own genre, right? Yeah. But it certainly does have this commentary on TikTok and Instagram culture as well, which is very heavily featured in the movie. But Anya Taylor-Joy, knocks it out of the park again, as always.
Yeah.
Ray Fiennes is great. John Leguizamo's in it. He's great.
It's on Max, right?
I think I watched it on Max.
Yes, it is.
You put it back on my list, and you're describing it makes me think it's something I think my wife actually might like. So I might insert this into my October to do.
I think you didn't. I don't think you would. I think you'll enjoy watching it. You might not be like, "Hey, that was like the best horror movie I've seen in some time," but you'll be like, "I think you'll enjoy watching it."
Nice.
But it was close. That I kind of went back and forth on that for my 5 or 6. So
okay.
Check it out.
Okay.
That was your 6?
That was my 6.
So hit us with your 5.
My 5, I kind of tried to throw people off by telling Delvin his 5 was too high. My number 5 is No One Will Save You.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
So we had the same number 5 too.
I was being a little cheeky earlier before I knew we had so many numbers similar.
Yeah, this never happened when Lucas was here.
I think the first 3/4 of No One Will Save You are incredible. This would have been number 1 for me this year if it wasn't number 2. So
you didn't like the ending?
Me, I hated the ending.
Really?
Fact, I don't think it was deserved.
I dug the ending.
Yeah, I like the ending.
I don't. There was nothing in the movie that made me feel like that was an earned ending. It was never like this. We saw this character go through all of this stuff, and it's very like Nope. It's very like Fire in the Sky. It's very Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. I think this was called, right? Not Close Encounters. What was that one with Mila Jovovich? Was it Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind?
I think so.
Or no, just The Fourth Kind or something like that.
Yeah.
Very similar to those movies. I really appreciated. It also feels like Quiet Place, right? But I feel like it feels like Quiet Place because they introduce the bad guys quick. They do a good job at the look. I was a little disappointed at first that it was like the standard grays alien, but when they introduced the foot thing,
the feet,
the shape-shifting thing where they
there's multiple different types of alien. They're not all the same. Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
they kind of like change their appearance based off of their mannerisms.
Spider alien. Yeah.
The refrigerator scene was
Yeah.
incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked a lot of this. I loved the fact that she was kind of a silent protagonist for most of the movie.
I think
In fact, I was more disappointed when she spoke a full line. I was like, "Oh, now do it! You did so good getting this far."
I do agree.
She was-
I think for a role of being a silent protagonist, I think she gave it a lot.
She's
You get a
incredible.
lot from her, from her expression,
I mean,
and for her body language. Like she does put a lot on film.
from since Justified, I think she's been one of the best actresses that we've.
I wanted her to be Ellie.
Yeah, oh, that would have been great
Oh,
too.
okay. I can see
But that being said, I really did enjoy the movie all the way up until the last quarter, and I just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't vibe for me. I didn't like the direction it took. I didn't feel like it was. I don't know. Maybe I felt like that's been done before. That I don't want to spoil it.
That
but,
I
like,
think is fair. It's somewhat
like
kind
that
of
ending is-
cliched.
yeah,
But here's the thing. I think you're right. It is somewhat cliched in hindsight, but I'm not going to lie to you. Up until the point where it starts to go down that path, I wasn't expecting it to go that way.
Oh yeah, I didn't expect it either. But I just
and when it did, it almost like kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I mean, I'm now wondering if my takeaway was her treatment by all of his people from past events has like really done a toll, and almost like the Greys were almost accepting of her by the end.
Oh,
That was like my takeaway.
that.
Do you know what
I
thought
took that
was?
in and I took something else.
They
in
were
too.
like, we're not gonna fuck with her because she's been like beaten up too much.
Until that ending,
Yeah,
I thought it was like all an allegory for how she felt about what happened, and that it wasn't even really happening.
Oh yeah, that's
That'd been
way
cool.
deeper than I was. I wasn't that deep in it.
But I wasn't going to be happy with that. I just thought that that's where it was going. I was like, oh, I'm going to be really disappointed if this is it was all a dream kind of thing.
Yeah.
okay.
And that's where I thought it was going. Like, this is how she deals with her trauma.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially when the dancing, and that makes sense.
I felt like they got to a point. I don't want to spoil too much about like that the Grays were like, you know what, we respect this one.
Yeah, that was my
you can do
take.
your
That was where I landed on it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. It's a twist, kind of.
Yeah,
Like, it's different.
you've
And
earned, you've earned this.
yeah, and because of all the things that we see and the things that are implied, and they just lived her whole life this way, and she's been in isolation because I was like, oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And this is when I'll rewatch. I'll rewatch this, and there's another movie on my list that I'm going to rewatch because I feel like I'll be able to get more out of it. But first impression, I really think I could have enjoyed it more. Maybe I will, because I will, I will watch it again.
Okay,
that was also your number 5, Delvin, right?
correct.
So we are on to 4s. My number 4 is Knock at the Cabin by one M. Night Shyamalan.
Dude, we
the
are
fuck outta here.
so in sync. That is
Are
my
you
number
serious?
4.
Yes, that's my number 4. That is my number 4.
The things that
I'm
I
not
wrote
even
down, I like this movie a lot, and I watched it as soon as it came out on streaming, and my takeaway was I felt like the coverage for the movie was that people didn't like it as much. My wife didn't like it as much either. But the thing that I liked about it the most is, well, honestly, the reason I was kind of in for this from the premise. For people who have listened to this show for a long time, they would know I love apocalyptic end of the world movies. I love end of the world movies. My favorite thing. So it literally is like doing 2 of my favorite things. It's like horror movie, house invasion movie, end of the world movie. I was like, fucking, I am here for it.
Yeah.
Like it was my jam. The thing that I wasn't ready for was how well they sold the premise.
Yeah.
My wife and I were on different ends at the end of the movie. We're literally watching the end. We're like, what do you think? Because I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, that shit's real.
Yeah.
It's real. It's all real. And she's like, it's fake. They're putting it on. Like she's thinking, I think she was trying to overthink M. Night. And I'm like, see, he's got you though. I was like, he's got you. I know how this works. So I really liked it. I think Batista was great. I think the people were great. I think the terror was great. 4 is like everything below 4. I was like, these are fine. These are good. I enjoyed it. 4 is like, I loved it. Like, this is where the love gets in. I love Knock at the Cabin. I really do. I really enjoyed it.
I do too. I saw this night one when it came out in the theaters with my kids, and they liked it a lot.
Nice.
It's such a unique, weird film where, because I went in blind. Only thing I knew about this movie was Batista was in it. It's a horror film. It looked interesting. The beginning scene where Batista is talking, I don't want to say too much, is so unnerving. People were like, what? Like, I was in the theaters when they were watching, like, what is going on?
I mean, they sell it. And for those of you, if you've watched the trailer, you've seen the movie. The movie is the trailer.
Yeah.
But what you're not ready for is how hard they go to sell you multiple universes.
What has happened?
It's selling you both. And it gives you reasons to believe what you want to believe. And that's the fun. Like, and I remember telling my wife, I was like, my takeaway was like, this could be a commentary just like on misinformation and like influence and shit on people as a whole. I was like, this is really good. In like kind of,
I agree.
In this year, in our Lord and Savior of 2023, I was like, this is fantastic. Maybe my favorite M. Night movie in a while.
I agree with that. It's my favorite as well. Wow.
I think what they did really well, which I think people who like horror movies will probably critique it, but maybe even overlook it, is like you said, like the apocalypse aspect. They do it. It's so well done, and I found myself doing the same thing. What would I do? What would I do in that situation? Because like there's points in the movie where you're like, that guy, he's being too callous about not caring about other people. Yeah. Would I be like that guy?
Yes.
Or would I be like this guy who, I guess, and I don't want to spoil, but like you're giving, it's very interesting how they work with concussion versus non-concussion and how that is used as for emotional intelligence in the movie, where this guy who does not have a concussion, at some point he's just like, don't talk to him. He can't speak for himself. But at some point you start to wonder, where is he coming from? Is his rational thought rational, or is it concussion protocol? And something the movie does is they cut away from all the gore.
Yeah.
And I think it still hits just as hard every time. In fact, like,
you know why?
To hear Bautista throw up, like, you're looking at this guy who is the giant of a man, who is terrifying, but is also incredibly gentle to this tiny little girl.
Yes.
And I feel like it feels sincere. Every instance of him speaking is a sincere moment for his character. And that's where the movie shines for me.
That's where it sells.
Bautista kills this movie.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for him, I think it'd still be good, but it would not be where it is.
The cutaway works. I'm glad you mentioned that. The reason the cutaway works is because they introduce such deadly devices of death. Like they tell you, like they show you, they give you the smoking gun. They're like, this is what I'm about to kill you with. And then they cut away and they let you imagine this horrible thing.
You can still hear, and you can still hear.
Yeah, you get the sound effects. Yeah, it's really good.
But I really enjoyed it a lot.
I was a bit upset when, again, I don't even remember this to be true because I don't check reviews, but I remember when it came out because it had so much publicity that a lot of people didn't like it as much. And after watching it, I was like, this is why I don't watch reviews, because I really liked it. I thought it was really good.
It was very mixed, but yeah, I dug it.
Yeah.
Excellent movie.
Was that all of our number fours?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Wow. Moving right along. Right? My number 3, I'd be surprised with your number 3. My number 3 is Candyland.
I'm sorry, Candyland is a board game.
It's not I thought
Candyland is my number. I know I haven't checked every other movie, but I do know for a fact that Candyland came out last year.
Okay.
So as a 2022 movie.
You're blowing my mind right now. Candyland is a movie?
Candyland is a movie that you can watch for free right now on Tubi.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
It is it's from a director named John Swab, who I don't know at all. And it's a B horror movie. It's full of, it's almost like an exploitation film, like one of those culty 70s movies. There's a lot to it.
It's got a Baldwin.
It does have a Baldwin. It's got one Baldwin going for it. All right, so here's the thing. It's a movie about a truck stop. It's about a group of prostitutes at a truck stop.
I'm interested.
Tons of nudity, literally from the start of the movie, like the opening of the movie. I mean, this movie, well, that's what I mean by exploitation. It's prostitution, it's religion, it's full frontal nudity, it's grimy, it's in your face, it's a motel movie. There's a lot of grunge indie stuff here. But as it unfolds like layers of an onion, and you start learning more of like, and I don't want to, I'll just say it. Who the fuck cares? I don't think many people are gonna watch this movie anyway. There's like a cult thing going on. The more you watch, the more you learn. And then it all kind of goes that way at the end. It goes full like Waco, full, Jamestown, sort of that way at the end. I loved what I think the director was doing. And this might be my overreaching horror fan enthusiast into pretentiousness. It's a Christmas movie. There's lots of transitions set to Christmas music and whatnot. And because it's like a truck stop movie about hookers, the camera angles and stuff are gratuitous. And I'm like, I know exactly what this director is doing. And it is funny as hell. Like the whole time I felt like I was laughing at what the director was trying to pull off. And I think because of that, I probably liked it a little bit more than you're supposed to. It's not a great movie. I'm not going to tell you it's like a better movie than Knock at the Cabin. I just had a lot of enjoyment from it. It's more my kind of thing. So I liked it a lot. I liked it so much that I was upset to learn that after I watched it, apparently it's not on print yet at all. Like you can only rent it or buy it digitally. And I was like, this sucks because it's shelf worthy. Like I want to put it on my shelf. This is definitely going to be like, this will be a movie for me that like 10 years from now when people are like, what horror movie should I watch? Like, I'll be like, have you ever heard of Candyland? They'll be like, I've never heard about it. Right? It's like that sleeper pick. It's that underdog pick that most people have probably never heard of.
Sean's in the chat. Sean, if you're just joining us, Donnie's talking about a truck stop hooker movie called Candyland.
Candyland. Yeah, it's good stuff. I like it a lot. It's pretty funny. That was my number 3. What about you, Delvin?
My number 3. I'm curious if it's Josh's number 3. Evil Dead Rise.
It's not
my number 1.
3. It's not my number 3.
Okay.
I won't reveal what my number is for that, but it's on my list.
I love this movie. It's great. It's Evil Dead in an apartment. What more can you say about it? Like, I kind of love the just
a lot. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I have a lot more to say about it.
I'm quite sure you do, but I love the fact that because I'm a big Ash vs. the Evil Dead fan.
Yeah, same.
And as much as I love Ash vs. the Evil Dead, the Deadites in the Ash Evil Dead series kind of feel a little bit hokey, just a little bit,
like Sci-Fi Channel.
Whereas in this movie, Deadites feel terrifying. It feels tense. It feels scary. I legit did not know who was going to live or who was going to die watching this movie. And when I got to the end, I was like, oh, that's who lived. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I like the way the movie started. And I love how it connected to the end of the movie. There's so many elements of this movie I really dug a lot. I liked it was very scary. I always love the scary movies that have children or young adults in it, and they're at risk in terms of like,
we could have be opposite.
Yeah, that's the whole thing I'm learning from this entire podcast.
Yeah.
We have so many picks in common, but we could now be opposite on the child endangerment.
I am like the Michael Jordan meme. Fuck them kids.
Like those kids, yeah.
Kill them off. Kill them off. You know, I dig when you put people in danger that you don't expect to be in danger, and then when danger actually happens to them. That's the thing that I kind of dig. It's not doesn't necessarily have to be kids. It's always the unexpected people. Like, oh, they're not going to kill that person. Oh, shit, yes, they did kill that person. I dig that in movies, and I think Evil Dead Rise does an excellent job of doing that. And I love that we're still getting Evil Dead movies. And unlike Scream, that keeps going back to the past, Evil Dead Rise is its own thing, and it works because it's its own thing. It's great. I like that they keep reinventing Evil Dead, and I feel like we can get 10, 20 more of these movies, and they all will be different, and they all be just as good. I love it. It's fantastic.
I like your thoughts.
Almost my number 1.
I'll reserve from going. I'll
Same.
save my thoughts for that,
Same.
for my number one. So, Josh, number 3.
Number 3. My number 3, I'll be interested in Donnie's take on this. It could have been my number 6. It's not going to make, that doesn't make sense, but right
No, it
now,
doesn't.
but
That's not how
it
numbers
will.
work.
I will make it make sense. Because I've been stewing on this movie. When I saw it, it almost didn't even make my list. It's been creeping up. And that is Talk to Me.
My number 2.
Oh,
And that's why I wanted to hold my thoughts, because I felt like both of mine were about to go. So
also my number 2.
Okay, so Talk to Me is my number 3. I almost didn't make the list, and this is another movie that I like reference, like I'm gonna have to watch again, just like No One Will Save You. I think it does a lot of good things. I think it's original in a lot of ways. It's also another comment on TikTok, Instagram culture, right?
Socials, yeah.
It has some great moments where it is essentially a drug film. It's a commentary on teenage drug use. I was so
Addiction.
bored. I was so bored at some points in this movie that I almost wanted to stop watching it. It was so overhyped for me that it really affected my enjoyment of watching it when I was watching it.
That's
so
fair.
like, and I kept going to myself, and this is where Donnie's going to hate me. I kept going to myself, man, It Follows did this better. Man, It Follows is so much better than this.
Don't do this to me.
I know. It had so many notes from It Follows, and as a huge It Follows fan, I was trying to like enjoy that aspect of it, right? I was like, oh, I think that's really cool that they're doing this. I think the premise is great. I heard that this is a directorial debut for these two brothers who did this
Danny
movie.
and Michael Filippo.
Yes. So they are also from Australia. They are Australian filmmakers.
YouTubers.
I heard that they have also filmed a prequel to this movie,
Wow.
like Pearl, where they filmed it on iPhones, and
Makes sense.
and it's about the first character we see in the movie.
Danny.
David or Danny, yeah,
Danny, David, yeah, something like that.
So I'm interested in that as well, but why I do think a lot of it was very interesting. I don't think it becomes a horror movie till about an hour in, and then I think a lot of the movie it's kind of tropey.
It is. That's fair.
I do think it does some things very originally. I really like the actors, but I've seen it. I've seen a lot of this movie before. I want to rewatch it because I feel like when I did watch it, I was like, this is going to be the best horror movie I'm going to see all year. I keep getting told this. It's incredible. It's A24. It's not going to miss. So I think I kind of got sucked into that hype as well, which kind of made me, I'm even questioning putting it at number 3, to be honest. No One Will Save You might be higher than this for me by the end of the year. Or it may become my number 1. I don't know. I still think there's a lot more to it that maybe I didn't pick up on. But I mean, we've seen possession movies before, and we've seen kind of a lot of these possession tropes that happen in the movie. I don't know. It just didn't meet my expectations, which has me bummed, if I'm being honest. I really wanted it to be my number 1.
Well, you said you were interested, so let me sell you on how to eat the hype. I do expect that most of the horror movie blogs and outlets and whatnot will probably name this their number 1 horror movie of the year. Sure. It's my number 2, as you mentioned, and it comes from Danny and Michael Filippo, who were YouTube influencers who have crossed over. They worked on the Babadook. They're on the cast for Babadook. They are currently working on a Street Fighter movie, and they used to write for WWE. There's an interesting.
You took me up and then brought me down.
There's an interesting backstory with these guys. I loved it. I thought it was great. I think it's very original. The tropes are fine. You were fair to point them out. Tropes saying bringing up tropes in horror movies is like bringing up repetition in games. It's how much it's an eye of the beholder type thing.
Yep.
A lot of horror movies are going to be tropey. The question is whether or not you liked it or not. I think it's very original. I thought it was very fun. I thought the actors were very good. It's interesting you went with It Follows because I went with Hereditary. I think for obvious reasons.
Yes.
And it borrows a lot from Hereditary, which I think is why I liked it as much as I did. I thought it was terrifying. I love the idea of the hand. I want to buy one. You can buy one if you didn't know. A24 is totally selling one. Yeah. And I kind of feel like I need to get one.
Yeah.
It's a funny premise. And it is interesting that these people who did like influencing TikTok and YouTubers, they would make this movie. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, kind of a theme for me in my 2023 movies is new blood, a new era, like ushering in new directors and new stories. And I feel like this is the flagship for maybe that movement this year.
I did like the ending.
And it was pretty bloody. I thought the effects were good.
Yes.
I could buy in, and generally speaking, I just enjoyed it. I thought it was a good little thrill ride. I'm not overselling it. I don't think any of my movies were like all-time favorite greatest, like I'm not that hard on any of them.
Yeah.
But Talk to Me is definitely better than most when I look at my list. That's why it's number 2 for me. It's just better than I had those expectations. Like my expectation was best movie of the year. And It's not my favorite movie of the year, which I've already spoiled, but like it's right there at number 2. So like for me, it's like it met expectation. My expectations wasn't greatest, misplacing Midsummer. Like I never went in thinking it was going to be that, but like I'm looking at it like I would rather watch Talk to Me again 1,000 times over The Blackening or The Wrath of Becky or Megan or Scream 6. Sure. Like it is definitely on another tier compared to those.
Yeah, it's still my number 3, so that's still high.
Yeah. Like I liked it. I liked it a lot. I do think maybe it's the expectations. The marketing was strong for it. The reviews were strong for it. And anytime you get that, this is the scariest movie of the year thing, you definitely get that counterculture. It's just so often we get let down by those movies. I wouldn't call this movie a letdown. May not have met the expectations, but it definitely wasn't a letdown.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a little bit why I'm a little stronger on it. So that was my number 2. Everybody knows my number 1, but I'll save it until you guys clear off your list. So delve into.
Did you do your number 3?
I did.
What was your
Candyland.
Oh, that's right. I thought that was your number.
My number 2 is Talk to Me, and I agree with everything Donnie said. I thought the movie was. I liked it a lot. I think I might have liked it more than both of you did. I thought it was really good. I thought it was well thought out. Now that I know the hand is a thing you can go buy.
Yeah, I'm gonna get one.
I might get one.
I told my wife. There was somebody in the TikTok. They were like, "I'm gonna make a bong out of it." I was like, "It totally makes sense." And it was good, man.
I dug it. Yeah, it was really good.
It didn't
cast.
I got one more thing I want to say about it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Delvin, but it didn't go off the rails. Right. Like so many horror movies do. Like it never went off the rails. I was like, this is dumb. It never gets there. And I love that about a horror movie. Like I just love that so much when it just sticks with its premise and it's not trying to like overwhelm you with spectacle. Like it just stays right where it is. And I was like, this is just a good, like it's everything I want Scream to be is Talk to Me. Like it is that. Like just do that. Just be it. Be simple.
Let me add to this that saying that I like that so many horror movies do this. What I mean by it, try to force a happy ending.
Yeah.
And this movie didn't do that. This movie's like, no, this is the ending.
Yeah.
This is what happened.
It makes sense.
We're done.
It's justified.
Goodbye. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's justified. It goes on. You're like, okay, that makes perfect sense for this movie.
If this was an Insidious movie, that would have been a 15-minute astral plane, spooky black light thing, like it would have sucked. It would have been awful.
Yeah. Everybody ended up okay. And like, all right, we move on our life. Now, that doesn't happen. And I dug that this movie kind of didn't do that.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right.
Is it down? Were we down to ones? Josh, do you have a 2?
I got a 2. It's complicated because my number 1 is a movie from last year. So should I make it my number 2?
I don't care. We have no rules. It doesn't matter.
So my number 2 is Evil Dead Rise. My number 2 is Evil Dead Rise.
Okay.
If we're doing movies this year, it's number 1. But Evil Dead Rise brought me back to the theaters.
Same.
Man, uh, I understand why some people don't love it, but
Josh.
as a lifelong Evil Dead fan, this delivers on every ounce of Sam Raimi blood.
For sure. Josh, I came across a Reddit after I watched this in theaters because I was just looking up where people were tearing this movie down, talking about how terrible it was. And I have never felt so disassociated with a group of horror fans in my life. I was like, you guys are
they don't get
too in over yourself. Yeah.
They don't get it. And well, those people want that. They want to be like that because that's like all I've read it. They want to be against the status quo because they don't want to be the status quo. And I get it, but you're making yourself.
You want to be full of shit.
You're making yourselves a status quo by being contrary.
Against,
right? Evil Dead Rise, it goes hard. And I'm not even kidding. It goes hard to the point where I thought the speakers were going to blow out in the theater. It goes hard from the beginning of the movie. It is one of the most fun and exciting intros to a movie that is basically irrelevant to the plot of the rest of the movie. I mean, it does pay off, but it's not important necessarily to enjoy the movie. That beginning is so good. It is terrifying. It's like, it made me go back to Cabin Fever. It made me feel like when I saw Cabin Fever as a teenager, and I was like, what am I watching? I can't shave.
What a good call.
I can't shave with my face without thinking about Cabin Fever.
I remember I'm just gonna take a tangent. I remember the first time I watched Cabin Fever, and I think I told this story on Decade of Horror. I watched Cabin Fever in the woods, or Cabin Fever in the movies by myself, and then we went to a cabin in the woods that summer after we graduated. And I absolutely had to bring that movie and make everybody watch it. And they were like, why did you do this to us? I was like, this is the best horror movie I've seen in like 15 years. Like, it's so good.
If there ain't some Donnie ass shit, I don't know what is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The rest of the movie, it's just a beautiful ballet of horror. They do such a great job at, like Dalvin talked about earlier, really focusing on the family aspect, which is new for Evil Dead. And it builds this, and it really, for me, it really builds up those stakes a lot because you're right. You don't know who's safe. Women, children, family, whatever. You also don't know who's bad. Women, children, family, whoever. It really plays to its surroundings. You are very aware of where you are the whole movie. I think as a audience member, as someone watching it, I feel like I was constantly thinking about ways out. How can they get out? What's going to happen? Why are they allowed to live in this condemned building? What the hell is happening with this cat? There's some great homages to classic horror films. Obviously, I don't have to say The Shining, but obviously The Shining has some great, cliche, sure, but they change it up in such a good way. It has the silliness of the Evil Dead in it as well. Speaking of Shining references, I just love it. I love it so much, and it sat with me for months after I saw it. It introduced me to, is it Alyssa Sutherland, who is just like, and Lily Sullivan, for crying out loud, like these incredible femme fatale characters, like just carried this movie on their shoulders. I really went in. I dug into all of the behind the scenes, the making ofs, the interviews. I thought just a phenomenal movie with great callbacks to the original while standing alone by itself at the same time. Like, just top tier horror. Unmistakable.
You're here. Yeah, well said. I'll jump in. It's my number one. So I'll go ahead and burn it now. You both have said mostly everything I would say about it. Directed by Lee Cronin. who did The Hole in the Ground for Decade of
Yeah.
Horror listeners, a movie I liked a lot. I don't think you or Lucas liked it as much as me, but I liked A Hole in the Ground quite a bit. I agree with everything you said. The opening is the best part of the movie, and it's stellar.
Yeah.
Like it really gets off to a tremendous start. There are times though, like if I could be critical, there are times in the movie where it doesn't, like it kind of cuts away or it doesn't go as hard as
it
there's
doesn't go
room,
hard,
there's overhead there for it to go harder than it does.
The intro
And that's
goes
saying
hard.
a lot because this movie has buckets of blood.
Oh,
Like it is blood soaked and drenched the way the Evil Dead could. The thing that I can say most about this movie is Josh and I are very big fans of Evil Dead. The Evil Dead, the Fede Alvarez remake is one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
We followed the development of this movie for years, and we kept combing over the trailers and the stories and the stops and the starts in production. And I'm sure if you go in our go into our Decade of Horror on the Discord and you just go back and look, you can find it. We were so like good, bad. We were so polarized with this movie because I was like, this movie is either because and all the stuff that they were releasing in the marketing, I was like, all right. I was sure at one point, maybe a year before release, I was like, this movie is going to be god awful, or like there's like a 5% chance that they nail the landing on this thing and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw the trailer for the first time in theaters, the release trailer when we went to see Cocaine Bear, the trailer played, and my wife looked at me and she said, "I'm not coming to see this." So she was too scared by the trailer. She's like, "No." She's like, "You will have to see this one by yourself." And the thing that I remember is I went and saw it, and then I came back, and the first thing I did was message Josh, and I was like, they did the damn thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it lives up to its namesake. It is an Evil Dead movie. And in a world that we live in, with reboots and remakes and sequels that tarnish and tear down the legacy of the things that came before them, we have this shining example of what should be and could be in the Evil Dead. For every terrible Texas Chainsaw redo and Friday the 13th revisit and Scream regurgitation, there is this franchise that is existing beyond Evil Dead, which is completely different from Evil Dead 2, which is completely different from the reboot, which is completely different from the TV show, and then we get to Rise. And I'll just say 5 words, 3 things. I'm going to say cheese grater, I'm going to say scalping, and I'm going to say eating glass.
Don't forget Stephanie.
It's so good. Like, it really is so good. I think in a really, really good year, like a really good year, like in a midsummer year, this might be like my 3rd or 4th favorite horror movie of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like in this year, it's number 1, and it's, for me, it's by a lengthy margin. Now, I expected that this to be my number 1. Just because of my bias. I do love the Evil Dead franchise. So like it was going to be hard to beat this. Like Talk to Me tried, but literally, and I think I'm saying this bias aside, Talk to Me is not as good as Evil Dead, right? It just isn't.
Yeah.
They're not on the same levels in my mind. And I do think the acting is it's so claustrophobic, which adds a lot to the tension. And then it ends on a beautiful blood fountain crescendo. And that was the thing that I think has been bothering most of the criticism I've seen is like, I can't believe it ended this way. And I was like, tell me you've never seen Evil Dead 2 without telling me you've never seen Evil Dead 2. The fuck are you talking about? You can't believe it ended this way. Like, where are you people? It's great. It's truly like the shelf-worthy movie of the year for me. For me, those would be Knock at the Cabin, Talk to Me, and Evil Dead Rise are my shelf-worthy picks from this year. I loved it. So I'm out of bullets. It's my number 1. So you guys complete your lists.
Delvin.
I guess I'll go next. I'll go next and let Josh go last. My number 1 is a surprising pick. My number 1 is The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
Oh,
I
nice.
thought it was fantastic. It's an
Awesome.
absolutely fantastic horror film that I just dug. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the blackening, how when you just add different perspectives, different people of color in movies, it kind of matters. And this movie is kind of a retelling of the Frankenstein story,
Yeah.
but it's done in such a unique way that I really dug in terms of like, I can get the plot synopsis of it. It's a 17-year-old girl who lives in the hood, like a terrible neighborhood. Neighborhood's just ripe with violence. Her mother was murdered there, and then her brother was murdered there. So she comes up with she's very intelligent, so she comes up with the idea of essentially like, hey, let me figure out a way to bring my brother back to life. So she basically makes her brother Frankenstein, like Frankenstein's monster. Because she's intelligent and stuff like that. And the way the story goes is so fascinating. Watching her finding out the realization that she brought him back to life and everything that happens after that is really cool. I really dug the whole scenarios of what was going on and a couple of surprises to me, like genuine surprise, like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. And I kind of really dug the way they took where they took the story and the fact that how when the movie ended, I was questioning who was actually the monster in the film.
Ah, I like that. I
think that's really good. 'Cause
Go
I
ahead.
think it's really cool that you can tell that story.
Yeah.
And you know, my whole thing has always been like, when you're doing a horror story, I dig when horror stories don't have happy endings. And when I watched the end of this movie, I'm like, is that a happy ending?
Yeah.
I don't really know if that's a happy ending. And I was kind of more intrigued by what happened and everything that transpired. And you know, there's points in the movie where you feel sympathy for the girl because she lost a mother and a brother to gun violence, and it's tragic and stuff like that. And then the neighborhood that she lives in is shitty. And she has like drug dealers, and the drug dealers are threatening her and stuff like that. And she's a genius girl. She's like very intelligent. She's figuring out stuff, and her family's still reeling over the death of their brother, their son, and stuff like that. And it's a lot of really eerie things. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like early '90s black horror films.
Yeah.
Maybe like Tales of the Hood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's it's like somebody was inspired by those black horror films and said, let's make one with a lot of thought into it.
Yeah.
And I just really dig this story. I really dug the story. I really dug how they retold the Frankenstein story in a way that kind of works for a modern generation.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Like, of course, the whole concept of like, hey, we're bringing back Frankenstein. It's a silly notion.
Yeah.
But when you tell it in this way, for this movie in particular, it worked. I'm like, okay, I see how she did it, and you see how she's doing and what lengths she's going to make this happen.
Yeah.
And I just really, really enjoyed this movie. I watched it today, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And it was one of the movies I had anticipated because I heard I can't remember his name, the guy from The Walking Dead, Tyree. He did an interview on it, on talk about the movie. Like, people are gonna be really surprised.
He's the dad,
how
right?
good this movie is. Yeah, he's the dad, and
Yeah.
I watched it and I was blown away. Like, this is really excellent. It's just so different than all the other movies that I've seen. I just really enjoyed it. I don't want to say it's the best I've seen. It's just so unique that it made it my number one. Like everything else I've seen, I've listed on my list. We've seen a variation of it of some sort.
Sure.
This felt fresh to me, and that's why this is my number one. I dug it though.
That's great. I'm really looking forward to finishing it. But I think it's funny because there's a part in the movie in the beginning where one of the neighborhood kids is trying to get into the school, and she's stopping him, and he's like, I just want to get in, and she says this thing. She's like, "Oh, you sure you want to come in? Because I got body parts, and it's delivered as like." You're seeing her just saying something to get rid of the kid because she like very clearly makes him scared. And then the payoff happens like 15 minutes later where you're like, oh shit, she was not lying.
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool.
It's a little jarring
and
eerie to see what's supposed to be a young child.
Yeah.
Sewing
like a skull together. Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is unnerving. Like, usually you see like roles like that done by like adult men or women and stuff like that. So seeing
Yeah.
a kid like, hey, this
And
is
the
what I'm
laugh
doing.
she
This is a little
has at the
unnerving.
end. She has that
Yeah,
Dr. Frankenstein laugh.
I
It's great.
really dug it. It was just really great.
Nice. I can't wait to finish it. I really liked what I've seen so far.
I'm glad you do.
Very cool.
I guess you go ahead and give your number one, Josh.
My number one, it's Barbarian, man. How could it not be? We didn't cover this
Josh loves
last
this
year
movie.
because it didn't hit streaming until after we recorded last year. Oh, my baby monitor's going off. Hold on. Turn it off.
I haven't watched this movie.
Yeah, so I obviously didn't go to theaters to see it because, the pandemic and all that fun stuff. So I had to wait until after we recorded last year to see it. I didn't know anything about it because I was told not to know anything about it before I watched it, and I'm glad I didn't. It is written. I should pull it up because it's written by a comedy writer, Zach Krager. He also, I think he just got picked up to write and direct a new horror movie, if I'm not mistaken. But he did like the TV series The Whitest Kids You Know, which is like a sketch comedy show. He's writing something called Mars. He's doing something big, and now I can't think of what it is or find it. But guy came. I think he's rewriting a Stripes movie TV series or something.
Wow.
He's a comedy writer,
Okay.
and he's a comedian. So this kind of came out of nowhere for me. Donnie hasn't seen it. I don't want to spoil it necessarily, but
I added 2 movies to my watch list: The Menu.
It definitely has
and
horror
Barbarian.
tropes, right? It has horror tropes for sure. A lot of horror tropes. I just think they're delivered in such a way that we've never seen before. And it's 2 different movies at the same time. It's like the don't go there. Why is this girl going there?
Mm-hmm.
Why is she doing that? Kind of
Stranger
thing.
Spray at Night.
Yeah, very
Just
much so.
Screaming at the screen the whole time.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And then Donnie, I'm just going to tell you this because this isn't a secret. I think it's in the trailer. Justin Long is in this movie. He strolls in this in the
Here's the funniest thing about this.
the back
You
half
told
of the
me-
movie.
I remember when you watched it, you changed your logos and everything.
Yeah.
You told much you loved it, and I was like, I gotta watch it.
Yeah.
And then you get busy and it faded in the background. And I've literally forgotten all about it until this show started.
Yeah.
And Delvin brought it up, and then you started talking, and I was like, that's right. I remember Josh told me I needed to watch it, and I just forgot all about it. So it has made it onto my written down list, which means I won't forget it. So
Great.
it'll be on my to-do list
There you
soon.
go.
Yeah, it's so good. It's funny. It's quirky. It is genuinely scary. Probably the last movie that really sat with me, and I had like when I'm talking about.
I think it's saying a
scary
lot
shit.
that it's your number one over Evil Dead Rise. Like more
Yeah,
than
you know
anything,
what?
that makes me
Yes.
want to watch it.
If I said if I liked it more than Evil Dead Rise, I think that does say a lot for it.
It does.
It's just it stands on its own. I'll say that.
Josh and I in particular go hard for Evil Dead. Like we basically had a full-on fight with Lucas for Evil Dead.
Lucas doesn't know shit. At least when it comes to horror movies, or at least when it comes to Evil Dead. I love Lucas to death.
Yeah, I miss him.
But I will literally kill him over Evil Dead. Yeah. Like I said, I don't want to talk too much about Barbarian because if you haven't seen it, I really think you have to go.
I believe that's what I remember you telling me about it. It was just watch it.
It's just so wonderful. It's just such a delight of a movie, and I will watch it again. I want to make it a yearly thing. I will make it a yearly thing along with some of the Evil Deads.
Wow.
And the Apocalypse, but that's a Christmas movie. But yeah,
With Candyland.
Barbarian is my number one over Evil Dead. What a crazy world we live in.
Great.
And
Love it.
I have to pee so bad it's scary. So that will be my segue to go pee.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we'll be right
Intermission. So you have our top 10s, unlike in years past. So I used to just release the podcast and be like, hey, if you want to make a list while you listen. Now we're actually going to release our list. We're going to put our lists in the show notes. So if you've listened to this 2 hours and you're like, oh man, I don't remember everything, it's okay. You're going to have our top 10 picks as well as our staff pick recommendations. I'm going to treat it like a blockbuster type thing, like what are some of our favorites. They don't have to be from this year, just some favorites that you'd recommend. We will include in the show notes on the actual podcast feed. But with that said, I do want to make a mention of one other movie. It wasn't my honorable mentions. It wasn't in my honorable mentions for a reason, because I don't think it's an honorable mention. You might say it's a dishonorable mention, but I'm not so hard on it that I don't like it. Like, I hate Insidious way more than this movie, but this movie is just, it's a topic of conversation. If you're Googling horror movies to watch in 2023, you're bound to come across a movie called Skinamarink. Skinamarink is a movie from Kyle Edward Ball, who is a YouTuber. He had a YouTube channel where he used to do like these short story kind of creepy pasta things. Have you heard of this at all, Dolan?
I have not heard of this at all.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
So this guy used to have like this YouTube channel where he would create these, like, do you know what creepy pastas are?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So he'd create like these YouTube viral short stories, clips, things like that. And he created a movie called Skinamarink. And I watched it. And like I said, I didn't put it in my honorable mentions for a reason. I don't think it's an honorable mention. It just is a topic of discussion, really, more than anything else. I am not like opposed that this movie exists. It's extremely cheap. It's weird. My understanding of it is just generally that like it's essentially like a point of view horror movie if you were like a 2-year-old. And if you put yourself in that perspective, I actually think it makes sense. I'm like, yeah, I can imagine if I reach into my deepest, darkest recesses of memories, this is kind of how I saw the world as a 2-year-old. But then it also is like nonsensical and that things are disappearing and changing and all this other stuff. Ultimately, I think the execution on the premise is good. I just question whether anybody ever thought the premise was good. Like, the execution is good, but did anybody ever ask to think if the premise was worth executing on in the first place? Because it's just a lot of like still shots of a room and stuff like that. Like, it's not for everybody. It's not something that I think anybody particularly should I go out there and watch. But if you're interested in something just completely subverse, surreal, different, I mean, you could watch it. I think you would better like a condensed version. Like the movie's runtime is like 10 times longer than it needs to be to do the same thing. You could cut this thing down, way down.
Well,
so I just wanted
every movie is scary.
Yeah, I wanted to just like address it that, like, you know, I imagine if you're hearing about movies, horror movies 2023, you're going to hear this movie come up. I did watch it. I watched the whole thing. And there were parts and moments that I found tense and interesting. Like, one of my favorite things about horror movies, the things I bring up all the time, is it's such a gateway for creativity and for talent. A lot of actors, famous actors, get their start in horror. Famous directors get their start in horror. There's a whole legacy in the horror genre for budget films that become huge successes.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me at all that Skinamarink can kind of be like a Blair Witch-esque type of thing. Is it as good? Not at all. Not even a little bit. But like, does it surprise me that like it's getting some recognition? No, not really. Like, I kind of get it. So that was just my little 5 seconds on Skinamarink. But before we get into our questions, which we do have questions, and I wrote down a few questions that I just thought would be fun to talk about as well. Josh, while you're away in intermission, I do want to come up with in addition to our top 10 list that we'll put in the show notes, I want to put in like a staff picks list. I'm thinking of like a blockbuster, like a staff recommends shelf. And it can be anything. And that would be from this year. It could be old movies, but just we can go around a couple times. I don't have an idea of how many. Just anything that's on your to-do list this year that you want to give a shout out? Maybe you've already watched it. Maybe it's on your to-do list. Maybe it's on your watch list for the next month.
Yeah.
But anything like that, like, so I'll get started. This year, I've done a great job watching horror movies. I've watched so many, and I'm kind of like ahead of schedule. So, but my recommends this year, movies that I've already seen, Possession, which my wife and I watched a couple weeks ago, and she liked it a lot. And that's a completely wacky fuck movie. We watched Blackula, Reanimator, American Werewolf. We are going to do Friday the 13th Part 2. So if you do not know, this October has a Friday the 13th in it. You have to watch a Jason movie. Like, you have to. That's the rules. So we're going to watch Part 2. About 3 or 4 years ago, when we were doing Decade of Horror, my wife watched Friday the 13th for the first time. She was one of those people that had no idea what Friday the 13th was. So this will be her first time watching Friday the 13th Part 2. We also watched Night of the Creeps, which is a great pick if nobody's ever seen it. We watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which, as I was putting it in, and she does not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre as much as I do. She was all like, this is going to be all blood soaked and terrible. And I was like, you're never going to forget this movie, because if you've never seen it, this is the one that has Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey in it.
Yeah.
And it blew her mind that two of her favorite actors were so terrible. I was like, they are
so
trying to out terrible each other the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my to-do lists. I've watched most of them already, so I will work the menu and the Barbarian into it. I am ending this year. My Halloween movie that I'll watch in the driveway with my kids Halloween night will be Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
My wife has never seen. So that's kind of my watch list. My staff recommends for this year. If you're interested, I also watched New Nightmare on Elm Street this year.
Oh, nice.
That movie's worse than I thought it was. Like, than I remember it being.
Oh, I remember it being good. So yeah.
Yeah, so do I. And I still think it is good. It's just
it's the original meta movie.
It is. That's what the thing that I've always remembered about my longest takeaway from this movie, the thing that I always talk about is people tell me they love Scream. I'm like, it's not as novel as you think it is. Yeah. New Nightmare did Scream like 3 years before Scream came out.
Yeah.
But it's not nearly as entertaining. Like, this year was the first time I watched New Nightmare maybe in 10 years.
Yeah.
It's boring for a long period of time. It's so slow. I was just going
to say, it's a lot of her trying to like talk.
Like dreamy talking.
Stuff, right? Yeah.
It's a lot of soft talking Nancy. And you're just like, what has happened? I didn't remember as much of that as I thought I did. So yeah. So just to recap, Night of the Creeps, I recommend. American Werewolf is a classic. Possession, if you want to get weird in European. Blackula, if you want to go to an exploitation 70s slick. Reanimator is another classic. Terror in the Isles. Those are my watch lists. So, Josh, do you have any to-dos that you want to do before Halloween, or any just favorites that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so I have a to-do Bodies. I really want to watch. I've heard great things, so I'm interested in watching that, as well as Crimes of the Future, which is the Lee Cronenberg film.
Yeah.
With Kristen Stewart and what's his name from Lord of the Rings. My go-to recommendation for people who haven't seen it, I would say
Viggo Mortensen. I watched that movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would tell people seek out. I want to recommend 2 unsettling horror movies. Right off the bat, I would say if you want to feel weird and get in touch with your uncomfortable side, watch Creep and watch Killing of a Sacred Deer. I think those are.
You're just trying to fuck people all up this Halloween.
I think those are 2 of the most unsettling movies I have ever seen.
Yeah, that I agree with.
If you like Creep, you can follow it up with Creep 2, because I think Creep 2 delivers just as good as the first one. I really just truly enjoy those movies. And check out Possessor if you haven't watched it yet. I think Possessor is a fantastic horror movie that blends with sci-fi very well. It's gory, it's scary. It's kind of all over the place, and I'm a huge fan of it. There's a couple other movies that are escaping my mind, but we have talked about them previously on Decade of Horrors. So that's okay, because you should have listened to them by now and watched all the movies we talked about. It's so
true.
easy.
All
we only
9,000 of them.
Yeah, about 100 movies in the period of a month.
Delvin, do you have any movies that you want to watch this month, or just favorites that you want to recommend that the listeners give a try?
Oh, I'm gonna go with the classic. A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3.
Oh,
Dream
the Dream
Warriors.
Warriors, the best.
That's my jam.
Dream Warriors is
That's one of my favorite
iconic.
movies. Yeah, I love that movie. I'm gonna go back and watch Friday the 13th, the first one, because I know a lot of people haven't seen that one. I
Yeah,
have.
it's still surprising how few people know Friday the 13th Part 1.
Yeah. So
Where's
recommend that
Jason?
one for
I
people.
watched
Go
this
check
whole
it out.
movie and no Jason.
Get your shit together, people. It's like the Metroid. It's like the why can't Metroid crawl shit? It's like get your shit together.
Yeah.
You gotta walk before you can crawl. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch those too. I'm gonna go. I watched one that got Donnie's ire a little bit, and I'm gonna retract a little bit what I said about it.
Uh-oh. I know where this is going, yeah.
You know where it's going. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
You damn right. You better apologize.
OG?
You said it didn't hold up.
I still say it doesn't hold up.
You're wrong.
No,
Like, you're
that's
just wrong.
incorrect.
It's
But
the
no,
original hold up. Nothing holds up in comparison to it.
No, it doesn't hold up. But I will
You're
say
out
this.
of your damn mind.
I feel like it's a must watch
Of
to
course.
see the whole lineage of where
It's
horror
Rushmore.
films come from and where
It's
the slasher films come from. Yeah, I dig it.
yeah, it's,
Listen,
it's Rushmore. It's one of the most influential horror movies of all time.
Look at Sean's
Yeah, it's
to watch list. Don't be like Sean. Please have seen. all
No,
these
no, hang
movies.
on. Let me say this.
I'm kidding.
So
I'm teasing.
I'm excited for this because I'm going to be on a podcast later this month with Sean where we talk about horror movies. Maybe I
Yeah.
can bring up some of these new ones that I've talked about. Sean is watching Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw, and Child's Play
Yeah,
for the very first time.
that's crazy.
that's great.
I am so jealous that
That's great.
somebody gets to experience Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time again. I have watched Nightmare on Elm Street 100 times. I cannot wait to discuss these movies with Sean. I have no
Oh.
idea how he's going to land on them.
We spoiled.
Let me ask you a question.
Sorry, Sean. I didn't mean to spoil Friday the
That's
13th
fine.
for you.
We've done it before. I've done it like 8 times.
Sorry, Sean. I spoiled a 40-year-old movie for you.
Yeah, like we've done it 1,000 times. I did it on
Let me ask you a
PSVG
question,
like
Donnie.
2 months ago.
He did. He really did. Let me ask you a question, Donnie. Which one do you think he should watch first? To ease him
He's
into
already
that one?
gotten started. Which one do I think is the best? I think
Friday
Okay.
the 13th.
Texas Chainsaw, I think, is the most important, but Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, is the best movie of the 4. He's got
Think
another
so?
one too, but I think so. The Dream Warriors is my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street. And I don't think that's like original idea. I think most people like Freddy, like
That
Dream
is my
Warriors.
favorite.
I think Nightmare on Elm Street's the best
Wow.
movie. I think it's the best Nightmare on Elm Street. It's the scariest. It's the best. I think it's the best story. Dream Warriors is just like kind of chaotic and fun and stupid,
Yeah.
right? But Elm
Dream
Street is like maybe Nightmare on Elm Street. The first one might be the ultimate holds up horror movie. That movie is as every bit as good as the moment I saw it, and I think it's like the Mario of horror movies. I think that movie
Yeah, I
will be
heard it.
good
Yeah.
forever.
Amber Heard watches that every night, right? Now?
Yeah, like there's there's absolutely nothing wrong at all with A Nightmare on Elm Street ever. I love that movie. The whole Tina scene,
I agree.
the fucking school, dude.
That's
It's the
great
best.
scene.
It's the best.
Spoiler.
I told my wife, I always bring this up, but I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, for the first time in like 2nd grade. And my wife, she's like, that is what's wrong with you. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, we watch it every Halloween, like literally from like 2nd grade through high school. Every year
Yeah,
I've
I
watched
think I
Nightmare on Elm
we
Street.
would, we would army
watched
crawl
the third
from my
one first.
cousin's room into the kitchen because my aunt would be watching in the living room. So we, as kids, we would army crawl into the kitchen and watch it from the corner of the like rocking chair that my uncle would sit in, because they loved watching horror movies. So we would see like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, through a kitchen,
Nice.
through the corner of a coach sofa.
I watched it in an unfinished basement in Ohio
That's
that had
terrifying.
copper plumbing lines running above it. It totally looked like the boilers. So the podcast with Sean is supposed to be a surprise. Sean, you were in luck. Nobody listens to this podcast anyway. So
And it's-
I think the
yeah.
surprise is
You're
still a
good,
surprise.
John.
Yeah, we're
Your secret
totally
is
good.
safe
This
with
is a
us.
safe space. It's just the four of us. We're good.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm very excited. I'm envious to be in a position to rewatch those movies for the first. Can you imagine in 2023, like you get to experience Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time? Like what a treat.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make like every modern horror movie pale in comparison? You'd be like, what is this trash I've been watching the last 2 decades?
Invisible Man was mentioned last year, Drillish. I want to say this. My son watched Ghostbusters when he was 5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My kids
And,
watch Ghostbusters
Yeah.
at the same time.
I thought he was never going to sleep again, but he slept fine.
Oh, really? Oh, my
Yeah.
kids took that in stride.
Yeah.
But my kids don't like horror movies. I've never, the undying wish is that my kids come to me one day and they go, Dad, let's watch horror movies together.
Yes,
I've never,
me too.
they hate
Me
that. They're like, I hate horror movies. I never want to watch any of this.
Oh, your kids are grown up. I was like, they might go into it. But
Yeah,
they
my
don't.
daughter's about to go to
They're
college. She still is like, I never want to watch a horror movie again. So
I have my own story about horror films. When I was a kid, I was like probably like 8 years old. My uncle had at my grandmother's house a large collection of horror movies
I'm jealous,
and
Trellis.
porn.
Wow, a large collection, huh?
So,
It was a large
horror movies,
collection.
very large, and he had it in this big old like shelf and like box and stuff like that. And he didn't really have them like labeled properly. So me being a dumb kid, like, oh, I want to
A
watch
Nightmare on
movies.
what street?
So I would pop in a movie, and it's almost like
69th
Russian roulette.
Avenue.
Is it a porn or is it a horror film?
I
Yeah.
guess we'll
Oh,
find
it's a
out
porn.
together.
Can't watch. So I would like, but because of that, I would watch movies like Sleepaway Camp,
Yeah.
all the Nightmare on Elm Street films,
Yep.
just all types of horror films. Because he had everything, like everything, like he just recorded off his VCR and stuff like that. And I just love horror movies so much, and I guess porn. Because of
Well,
I don't
you
know
never,
where-
you never grow out of either of those.
Yeah, it's my cousins and I. We watched horror movies together. I had 2 cousins, Brittany and Cassie, and we kind of palled around a bit as kids. And yeah, we just all liked horror movies. It was always like almost like a competition to like who could scare the other the most, like who could get scared the most.
Yeah.
So we watched, Child's Play, Chucky, Friday the 13th, Freddy, Jason. We watched all that as children. And I think from that, I kept going, whereas I think they just got into other things, and I just kept on that path. So I've watched horror. My mom used to rent horror movies for me when I was in 3rd or 4th grade. I get pay-per-view horror movies. I just like my mom be like, "What do you want to watch? Like Aladdin?" I'd be like, "Friday the 13th Part 3, Mom." Like it was just that. And that is literally just like my upbringing. That is just how I was as a kid.
Yeah.
So it was nothing. When I was in 6th, 7th grade, I'd done seen everything. I'm rewatching things again. So my wife knows this about me. When we met, it was probably like a year courtship where I was like on my best behavior. And then I was like, but I love horror movies. And then like every year since then we've started, and it's just gotten progressively worse. To this day, her parents like it was a couple weeks ago. I'll sell this anecdote. My father and mother-in-law were here, and I can tell I'm getting just like slightly drunk. If you can't tell, I can tell. And they were like, why do you watch these things? Because we were going to watch a horror movie. They're like, this is such a sad life. And I think at this point I can actually say I've converted my wife over. She likes them. We don't like the same things. She's way more into like the Catholic guilt horror, the possession horror, but like we both love good, terrible horror movies. Like we were having a ball watching Blackula. We both love The Stuff and Night of the Comet, things like that. So we have this like perfect Venn diagram of these terrible old movies that we both like. But she actually went to bat for me. So I love these movies, like this movie and that movie. I've never been so turned on in my life. I was like, you guys need to go. We're about to make another baby. You guys are about to have grandchild number 8. We're gonna name her Sydney if you guys don't get out of here too soon.
Oh boy. Oof.
All right. So I wrote down some questions before we got questions. So the first question that I wanted to ask, because I think this is a good one to think about in 2023, is can horror movies still compete in a blockbusters driven medium, right? So, and if you think of the movies this year has been dominated by what? Barbie, Oppenheimer, Marvel movies, things like that. And we see less and less, I think, like original IP, maybe as a better word, artful movies. Like we're not seeing a whole lot of big production movies being greenlit in that space. Do you think that's good for the horror industry, which kind of like makes its bones kind of in that arena?
Is the question, do we have good horror movies coming out?
No, because I think we do have good horror movies, but like, can they compete? Can we still have the big blockbuster horror movie at the theater experience?
Heck yes.
Yes, we can. I think we've had that. I think it's just on a different scale. I think that horror's in a good place because a lot of
Evil Dead Rise is not Oppenheimer. It's not Barbie.
But it doesn't have to be.
Well, yeah, it's
like,
not.
I'll give you a perfect example.
Yeah, but horror movies used to be. Like the summer horror movie used to be a big thing.
But in contrast to that, I think the difference is when those big blockbusters flop, they flop. Like the Flash took a beating. Like, you know, they don't put as much money in the horror films.
The Flash,
but that's the one. That's the one.
It's not.
Awesomely
I
awful.
loved it.
Oh wow, that says a lot about you.
It is a horror film in itself because it is awful.
It's the best DC movie since Suicide Squad.
That ain't saying much. That ain't saying much. That is awful.
We're not here to discuss the horror of DC.
Yeah, we're not here to discuss the Flash. Let's not get off on this tangent.
Yes. But you know, movies like another terrible movie, Winnie the Pooh, Bud and Honey, didn't cost that much to make, but made a shitload of money. And I think that's the kind of cool thing about these.
Did it make money? I don't know.
Delvin, we don't want that representing horror.
Yeah, I don't follow the movie making industry. I just know that like my answer to this question would really be I think the thing that horror does best is that it's cheap. Like the best thing about horror movies is that it's cheap. It's usually cheap to make. And I think that'll always give it a chance. But I do think the industry trend overall is for more known quantities. I think we're going to see more Screams, more Friday the 13th, more Halloweens. We're going to see more known things versus new things. Talk to me's and things like that. You're not
going to get a Barbie out of horror because Barbie is accessible to everybody. And Oppenheimer is accessible to people who like films and then people who are pretentious. Unfortunately, they all kind of fall into the Christopher Nolan verse. Like next year alone, right?
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, we got Eggers, right? He's got Nosferatu coming out, right?
True.
Next year.
Yeah.
That's going to be $100 million movie. No question. We got Quiet Place Day One coming out.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge.
Yep.
We got Return to Silent Hill. That's going to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice 2. That's going to be huge.
Beetlejuice is going to be massive.
There's a new Alien film coming out. That's going to be huge.
Do you know why that's going to be huge?
We got Terrifier 3 coming out. That's going to be awful.
It's going to be awful, but people are going to see it.
Do you know why the Alien movie is going to be huge?
It's because of Blomkamp, right?
It's because Fede Alvarez is directing. It's going to be fucking awesome. Yeah, Fede's doing it.
That's
it's going to be great.
There's so much room for horror, but I think to your point, they kind of have to disguise it a little bit. It can't be like Eggers isn't going to pitch Nosferatu as a horror movie.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
You know, Return to Silent Hill, it's going to make money. It might not even go to theaters, but it's going to have the following of gamers.
Yeah, it's going to make money because of the name brand.
Year.
Yeah.
And the first Silent Hill is a good movie. The second Silent Hill is not a good movie. And Beetlejuice, like, it's horror adjacent, but it will still be
Beetlejuice is
billed
like
as a
the
horror.
Beetlejuice of all the things you said. I think Beetlejuice is like the hope. Like I
Yes.
want to exist in a world where horror is still worth investing into.
But
I want Universal and Fox and Disney. I want them to invest into horror properties. I don't want them to just think that they have to make cheap Renfield like projects.
Yeah, but it'll
Well, to
also
be
bring people
fair-
back to Beetlejuice, the first one,
Yeah.
which will
Yeah.
should create. Look at me doing this. Create a cascade of like horror film watching. Oh God, come on, camera! Don't buy Razer cameras, people. They're terrible.
Don't worry,
Go
we're
back.
not.
Go back to your Logitechs.
Yep. Don't have it.
But to be fair, Doctor Strange was a horror film. Very much so.
Yeah, but that's the same Raimi. Yeah, and you're right. It is a horror film.
It's very
And,
much so a horror film.
and people didn't like it. Marvel fans didn't like it. I loved it.
I thought
haven't watched
it
it.
was good.
It's so good.
It is
It's
a
the same
Sam Raimi
Raimi
film.
movie through and through.
Okay.
Through and through.
Right.
With Marvel characters.
Yep. You don't even need to be caught up in MCU to watch it because they really
You don't
just
even need to care
nail
about
zombie
MCU.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
My second question is, what gets you excited about the future of horror movies?
It's not going anywhere. Like horror is it. It's like a roller coaster. We live to feel that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
People will always be scared, and it will, like you said earlier, right? When you're younger, it's always going to be that competition between kids. Oh, I'm having a sleepover. I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street, fill in the blank, or whatever movie. I want to scare all my friends. And then that's where it goes. And then those 7 kids went to a sleepover. 3 of them went home because they couldn't watch. But the 4 that stayed, they're going to do it again next year to their other 7 friends.
They're
And
set
2
on a
of them will
lifelong
go
path.
home. It's just going to keep going. That's what's the beauty of horror. When I was a kid, I went to a haunted hayride. I sat in the middle of the hayride with my head in my lap. I couldn't even look. I was with my best friend, his whole family, and my family. And I was embarrassed, but I was so scared to look. And now look at me, like I watch horror movies all the time. I love it. It just releases this serotonin that makes me feel good about, and like I think it just takes you to get to that point in your life. I think at some point, like my wife, like they make a decision. I'm just choosing not to ever watch a horror movie, and that's self-preservation, right?
Dude, my wife's aunt, we were talking about horror movies like our last Thanksgiving, and she was like, I just don't believe in that. I just don't think it makes your life healthy. She's like, just in with the good, out with the good. She's like, if you're going in with the bad, it's going out with the bad. It
But
was
if
the
you never
funniest shit
feel
I ever heard.
anything, you're not feeling anything. Like the horror movies are great because it makes you feel. It makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
And
It's like
that's
a
what's the
primal
best part of them is.
Carnal urge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
For sure.
something about that fear. I got a story about that. So my son, when he was younger, not too much younger, but I'm putting him on the spot here.
When my son was
With
2, I
Universal
showed him
Studios.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre with
No,
Jessica Biel.
Not even.
He was like, see, son,
Not even.
look at this mid-ass movie. How
Why you
dare you?
scared?
How dare you?
I took him to Universal Studios, and they have the Kong ride there.
Yeah.
The Kong Skull Island ride.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we're all going on there as a family. And as you walk through the lines and stuff, they like have the skulls and stuff like that. And you hear Kong, Kong, Kong. He freaked the fuck out.
Sure.
He starts screaming, "Oh, get me off of this ride!" What the fuck are you doing? It's not even scary. He ran out, and we had to leave the ride because he was just completely freaked out on us. So, then I like, all right, that's fine. So after that happened, he started slowly watching horror films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, starting to get acclimated to horror film. Like, this shit isn't real. You have to be scared of this stuff. It's not real. I think the first one, I want to say the first horror film I showed was Us. I want to say that was the first one he saw. And he loved it. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. And then, since then he's been watching other horror films and playing Resident Evil games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then recently we went back to Universal Studios. He said, "Hey, I want to go on that Kong ride." I said, "You're gonna be really disappointed because you're gonna realize you were scared of this bullshit." And sure enough, we got on the ride. He was like, "This shit isn't even scary." I don't know what I was scared of. He's like, "This is boring." Like, yeah, you made us, you embarrassed the shit out of us for nothing. Ran out the ride for no reason. It wasn't scary. Like, yeah, I don't know what I was scared of. And ever since then, he's like, "Let's get on all the horror rides." I'm like, there you go, son. I'm too old for that shit, but you have fun.
That's a great moment though, because they're realizing that what they're like. That's a big life moment.
Yeah, conquering that fear of something, and once you see the reality, I'm like, oh, this is nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be, and now he's not scared of any of that shit.
Yeah, that's great. That's a big step forward.
Huge step forward. Yeah,
I think people should be excited about the future of horror because, again, I do think it's cheap.
Yeah,
but I also think there's it's an ever expanding kind of universe. We're getting a lot of international horror flicks, a lot of indie flicks, a lot of B movie flicks, a lot of straight to Hulu, straight to Netflix, straight to Max, straight to Paramount Plus flicks. Korean
horror is dope,
dude.
Korean horror is great.
Save it for. We've got questions. Save it. Speaking of questions, let's get into them. Our first question comes from Captain Awesome, who's asked in the PSVG podcast this week. He asked me, "Jeepers Creepers is my all-time favorite horror movie. How do you rate it, Donnie?" Donnie rates it poorly. So Josh, to fill you in, he asked us this on the podcast live this week, and I said, okay. I said, give me a minute to go back and rewatch this because I haven't watched a Jeepers Creepers movie in at least it's been a long time. And I'm so glad I did, because here's the reason why. In my head, when the question comes in live on chat, what do you think of Jeepers Creepers? I was remembering this bus scene in this terrible movie that I watched. That would be Jeepers Creepers 2.
Part 2, right?
I completely forgot that Jeepers Creepers 1 was equally as bad. It's terrible. What a terrible, it's your favorite horror movie ever? Captain, favorite of all time?
Don't shame people for liking horror movies.
Dude, Justin Long just stares aimlessly into a camera for 40 minutes of that movie.
I feel like that's his first role, right? I think it's his first job in Hollywood.
Awesome.
The whole movie, it's just him aimlessly staring into a camera.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. It isn't. I'm sorry. It's not very good. It's a pretty terrible movie.
That movie's not very awesome.
D-Life says 1 and 2 were decent. He thinks they're decent. I would go less than decent.
This life is full of shit.
D-Life, you need to watch more movies to understand what decent is.
Yes.
Okay. Scream 6 is decent. Megan is decent. Yeah. Okay. Jeepers Creepers is below that.
D-Life, I'm here to support you. I like the first Jeepers Creepers.
Oh no.
But I haven't seen it for 20 years. So
go watch it.
Terrible.
I literally sat down the other day and watched this movie. And 40 minutes into the movie, I messaged Delvin. I was like, this was a mistake. I should have just said it was awful to begin with.
Every time I play the license plate game, I think of Jeepers Creepers.
Well, that's good. You can think of that. And here's the thing. It is so
I'll be beating you. Oh no, I'll be eating you.
I'm beating you up. It's so aughts horror. It's so 2002 to 2009 horror movie.
Yeah. It's like House of Wax.
It is.
It is exactly that's exactly what I was thinking. It is so House of Wax. It is on brand for what you think it is, and it is not good. It's bad.
Awful.
Yeah,
I'll rewatch it.
It's one of the horror movies I absolutely despise. So when Captain Awesome said, I said, should I say something? I'm going to let it go.
He wanted me to take the bait. He was like, Donnie, tear into this guy, and then I'll jump on. My lasting memory of this, I remember there was a kid in my neighborhood who found out that I liked horror movies. And we were on the school bus together, and he was like, have you ever seen Jeepers Creepers? And he came over, and that was the first time I watched Jeepers Creepers 2, that terrible bus scene. And I remember being 16 minutes in the movie and having the awkward moment where I looked at my friend. We were friends at the time. Played football together, and I was like, this sucks. And I ruined his entire childhood because that was his favorite horror movie. I was like, this is terrible.
So he's like, have you ever seen Jeepers Creepers? And you're like, no. And he's like, okay, let me show you the sequel. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what happened. He showed me Jeepers Creepers 2. That's why I remember that bus scene. That bus scene is scorned into my brain. And I was like, this is why I haven't watched the new ones. Wasn't there Jeepers Creepers 3 came out? And I was like, Jeepers no, I'm never watching this again.
I've heard it's terrible. I've heard it's
Who keeps watching these movies?
Well,
The
green
kid
light
that I
is
knew on the
bullshit.
school bus
Yeah.
when I was in 7th grade. Like that kid. He's the one. John 32 says, biggest creep out moment this year in the movies that you watched. And I should say, he goes on to say, like, you were actually scared.
I haven't had one
Oh.
this year.
I had one. Shit, I don't know if I want to spoil that part.
Don't spoil
He's
it.
asking.
Just say the
Like,
movie.
he's asking. Answer the question.
It
He's
was
like, I
a
have
scene
one,
that
but I'm not going to say. Great
it was a scene
podcast,
that talked
Delvin.
to me. But I want people to see these movies.
Yeah, well,
There's a
this is
scene
what
that
we do
talked to
here.
me.
We spoil movies all the time. It's our legacy.
It's a scene that talked to
true.
me with the kid.
Yeah.
Where he's at. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
he's
that's
just
kinda
beating his
fucked
face
up.
into the table.
Oh, when
just
he
full
gets
on
possessed.
hereditary breaking his shit.
Yeah.
No, not that scene. The scene
Oh,
where,
that's
where you
a
see
good
where
scene.
the scene where you see where
Oh,
he's
and
actually
he's
at.
inside.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I'm
that's
like, oh,
not as big a
I'm like, oh,
spoiler
that's
as mine.
fucked up.
Mine was worse.
Did
Yeah.
you know what I heard? I didn't catch this when I saw it, but apparently in that scene, you can see a woman eating a baby.
Yes.
I didn't catch that,
I didn't catch that either.
but I was like, "Oh shit, that's crazy." I don't want to watch that again.
My biggest scene is probably the scalping in Evil Dead Rise. I won't tell you where it is or whatnot. You'll just have to see it for yourself. But like, that was the moment where I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be fucking awesome." I remember everybody that's in theater was like, and I was like, "Fucking let's go!"
That is a crazy scene. Yeah,
It was
You're right.
great.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Ooh, all right. Let me change my mind. Mine is. I don't want to do it. No, I can't do that. Okay, I'm not. I'm done.
Fantastic.
I just,
Why don't as I come back to it?
Great audio.
I didn't have anything. I was just doing that as a bit.
Cousin Cecil says, with horror franchises coming back this year, it was Saw X and The Exorcist Believer.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're good or bad, should horror go back to older IPs or try to do new things like Terrifier or what X and Pearl is doing?
both.
Both.
We need more. You know what it makes me think of? So we got like new Friday the 13th and new Nightmare on Elm Street recently. Oh, not recently, but
Not recently, but
past.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think at least for Friday the 13th, that falls into what we just talked about, that 20-odd pitfall of bad horror
100%,
movies.
1,000%.
And I think even the Friday the 13th one, while I didn't hate the remake,
I'd be
I
excited
thought-
for a new Friday the 13th.
I think there's room, right, to start. So I
Yeah,
know
there
they're
is.
doing Camp Crystal Lake on Peacock as a
Mhm,
TV series,
mhm.
and that could be good.
I think a lot of people are. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think I'll add on to what Cousin Cecil was saying. I do think I'm wondering, and we're already seeing. I think a lot of people are looking at Chucky and taking that lead.
yeah.
Chucky has like revitalized the IP with its TV show,
Yeah.
and
I was gonna say that
its
same
season
thing.
3 is about to drop, and I think season 3 is going to end it. I think season 3 might be terrible. He's doing like some White House shit, like just in time for elections.
Yeah.
Chucky's going like full blown exploitation. Like, let's get in there. I can't imagine how Trump like Chucky's about to be, but I expect that's going to be the way that it goes. But I think a lot of people are just what the Chucky TV series has done for the brand is very positive.
Sure.
And I wouldn't I'm not shocked to see other people trying to follow that lead.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I like to see some of these horror classics become TV shows. I think
Camp Crystal Lake has some premise because it's going to be, as I understand it, it's going to be like not Jason.
Right.
Right. It's just like the setting.
It shouldn't be, right.
Right. It's going to be kind of like American Horror Story, but Friday the 13th. And that sounds kind of neat.
Yeah. I'm interested.
Okay.
But yeah, more. I think more of everything is good. TV, like new stuff, rehashing of old. I think rehashing, like redoing stuff, older stuff is fine.
When done well.
I just think that you like it falls into these pitfalls of like not being original or cash grab, and obviously you don't want that, and it's easy for studios to do that because that's like guaranteed money. It's like, oh yeah, we can do this because it has this fan base. Like, look at the Halloween movies, right?
Yep.
Just because you got
The new trilogy
freaking
sucks.
Right. Just because you got Danny, what's his face, writing because he was a horror
McBride.
fan,
Yeah.
and we all like him.
The first one I thought was good.
I love
And the other
first
two
one
came out. And
I
I
did
was
too.
like, these are awful.
because you have a base idea, and then they probably tried to milk more movies out of him.
Yeah.
And realistically, he probably had all good movie like Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Look at Halloween.
Spot
Great.
on. Good point.
And then boom, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. They're like, you got to do a second one. He's like, I don't want to. Like, well, we're gonna get someone else to do it. And then he's like, okay, great. I'm just gonna make a snuff film, and you guys have to sit and watch it.
Pretty much.
And like nobody likes that movie.
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. I do think original movies would be better. I like the brands coming back. Not all of them. I mean, I think we've almost talked about this maybe on every episode of Decade of Horror. So with tradition, I'll say it again. Leave Friday the 13th alone. Like Freddy is Robert Englund. Just leave it alone. It is what it is. But that doesn't mean you can't do Halloween again. Doesn't mean you can't do more Michael Myers or Jason. I think those opportunities exist. But you have to do them well. Let go of the past. Stop doing Laurie Strode and all that. Like, move on.
Yeah.
Like move on. Like that's the problem.
80-year-old Laurie is running from Michael Myers.
Yeah, it's like you're holding yourself back by not embracing what could be.
Yeah.
Look at what The Evil Dead did. Do that. Like The Evil Dead is a shining example of what could be done. And I think Jason is ripe for that. Jason needs that in the worst way.
Yep. Agreed.
Jason's the ultimate like immortal horror. Like, cause his character is no character. He is like a being. He is just Jason, and Jason does what Jason does.
Yeah.
That's such an easy thing to write. And yet they still like get in their own way too often. Jason in space. Like, no, how about we just do Jason?
Listen,
Yeah.
I want to give some love to Jason X.
Oh God.
I love Jason in Space, especially the sleeping bag kill. By the way, Donnie, Multiverse of Madness.
There you
Doctor
go.
Strange. Watch it. To look at my creepy haunted door.
Yeah.
Look at that poster.
I mean, I think Jason is great when kids go to the woods and Jason haunts them in the woods.
Yeah, and they go to sleep in a sleeping bag, and he picks it up and he destroys them against a tree.
Honestly, and I like Jason versus
in
Freddy.
a simulation.
I think Jason versus Freddy is way better than people remember it. Like, it's pretty good for what it was.
Yeah.
I like it better than Jason X. But I don't mind those things coming back. But what I will say to Cousin Cecil is I think the people that are doing horror, like Ari Aster, Ty West, and things like that, like the new blood, they're not interested in doing that. They're interested in paving their own, like scorching their own path.
New original ideas, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. Do that.
Because they're incredible.
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to give up Midsummer or The Witch for another Jason movie. That's ridiculous. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be great. Do you have anything to say, Delvin, for the next question?
I think you said it all. I agree with you.
So I'll let you answer this one first. Todd of War says, are there any funny horror movies you saw this year?
Has there been any funny horror movies this year? I guess Renfield counts, right? I haven't seen.
I think The Blackening has its own share of laughs. I also think The Wrath of Becky is a pretty jokey movie. You can have a fun couple laughs with it as well.
The Blackening probably be the only one I've seen that's funny, like comedy.
There's no Tucker versus Dale, Evil Dead 2. There's no like really funny horror. There's no Shaun of the Dead in this group.
Nope.
Yeah.
There's just movies that have some laughs for you. Usually around cheesy one-liner dialogue. They're not good laughs, but there are some movies that have a laugh. Or if you like me and you laugh at really horrific things, you can watch something like Evil Dead Rising. I laughed a lot during that.
I laughed a lot during that movie. It's so good.
I'll let you take this one first too, Delvin. Haley says, what's your dream horror movie setting?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know what might be my dream horror setting would be, because I kind of dig 80s campground kids in peril kind of horror.
Yeah,
because
me
it
too.
always that
would be my answer.
Friday the 13th is my jam, because you know, like, one of the reasons why is because there's a lot of targets. There's a lot of people to kill. Usually when
I
you
think
have
there's a
those
lot of
campground movies,
there's a lot of settings to explore in that space that I like a lot.
yes.
The
A lot of settings, a lot
outhouse,
of
the
people.
barracks, the cafeteria, the lake, the woods. Like it's very. There's a lot of things you can do there. The archery range.
I kind of dig when you have a lot of targets and you have a lot
Okay.
of different ways that Jason can kill people. Like, when you have like the 3 people, you're going to probably get like maybe 2 kills. But
Yeah.
when you have a big open campground or something like that, Jason gets to be a little bit more creative. So I kind of dig that.
Yeah, me too. I'll expand on yours and I'll say the neighborhood, like to pull like a Halloween card. The thing that I like about Halloween the most is like the backdrop, just the neighborhood. Like I think it appeals to everybody. Lots of people grew up in a neighborhood. If you ever grew up in a subdivision or anything, there's just the neighborhood. You know what it's like to cut through people's yards and back doors and back fences and stuff like that. And you can pop it in out of different houses and garages and all the little like in the shadows areas of the neighborhood that like you as a teenager walking the streets knew, but like don't get explored. And I think that's a lot of fun in horror movies.
You know what I think would be cool? Like a cityscape, like how they did in Scream, like the bodega and stuff like that. Seeing a killer,
Jason
in
Goes to New York.
environment like that.
I got a
Yeah,
movie for
I
you,
kinda dig that
Delvin.
too.
Yeah.
I dug that.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's a terrible movie. Terrible movie, but I dug Jason being in New
It's
York.
genuinely awful.
Everybody knows the scene from that movie, the boxing scene.
Ugh. Oh,
The subway scene.
yeah.
He doesn't need public transit. He's just around the corner.
What have you, Josh?
Yeah. For me, it's any setting where someone's out of their element, where they have to adapt. From anywhere from Midsommar to I don't know, fill in the blank. Something where you are your character's already putting themselves out there by doing something maybe out of their comfort zone, i.e., like traveling or going to see like in-laws, like Get Out or something like that, where your biggest fear is already
visit.
something you're trying to overcome, which is doing this thing that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And then you get to this place and you are now realizing, oh shit, like my biggest fear is my least fear now, because all this weird shit's happening and I don't feel comfortable. And how do I adapt? And we have so many different like iterations of that. And I'll use Get Out and Midsommar as 2 different polarizing examples. Like you have Get Out here, where our main character has to separate himself from this entire event and get out somehow. And then you have Midsommar here, and you're like, oh, I can embrace this. And now I am part of this and I'm safe. Like it's like that whole self-preservation thing. I really enjoy that, because Even Talk to Me has that, like you're trying to put yourself in the person's shoes as to what you would do in Cabin in the Knock at the Cabin, how you would do it, what you would do, any of those thinky pieces. Like, because like horror can be great when it's a slasher, but I really feel like when you can start feeling like the character, it makes it 10 times more scary.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
You. Well said.
That trip I booked to Germany in 2 years, maybe it'll be my last trip I ever book. Like, you never know.
Maybe you'll get a drill in the knee.
Right.
You never know.
Maybe like I'll check in and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry. We booked you in this room with 17 Australian travelers also, and Eli Roth is here." Oh no.
John wrote in, he wanted to know our favorite places to watch horror movies, and I think he means like digitally, not like the theater. So I will take this one, and I will tell you that and even long listeners of Decade of Horror I don't think I've been less aware of what Shudder's been doing for some time because
Yeah.
I've been addicted to Tubi this year. Tubi is the
Oh.
go-to place for horror movies. There
I
are
agree.
thousands of horror movies there. And like they're good, they're bad, they're good, bad. Especially if you're looking for deep cuts, 80s, 70s stuff. Like they've got all of it. And it's really, really great. The other one that I'll shout out is Cult Picks. I went down like a really weird exploitation, like B movie horror stuff. And Cult Picks is the place for like all of that. And the good thing about that is that a lot of those movies are very expensive. If you're trying to like actually watch them, they're not available in streaming. And if you want to buy a Blu-ray, they're like collector's editions that are like $100. You can go to Cult Picks for like $3.99 and watch all of it. So that'd be the other shout out that I'd give you.
Nice.
Tubi, I usually go to for horror movies and terrible movies like they were made for $20 and a ham sandwich. But
I love Tubi so much. It's taken over
Tubi's
so
great.
much. It's so good.
It's great. And,
When we did Decade of
I
Horror,
like
Tubi
Netflix.
was my go-to.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that's great. See, I would
I'm looking
pay
up right
for
now.
Tubi. That's how much I like Tubi.
You pay for it?
Not much. I would
Don't
pay
pay
for
for
it.
it.
Yeah, I would.
Oh. Okay.
Like-
I was like,
like,
I don't
I would
know.
pay
I
for
didn't
it,
know
like-
you could.
Yeah, if they would like take away the ads, I would pay for Tubi.
Wow.
I would pay $5 no ads.
That's saying
how
a
much I like
lot.
Tubi. Yeah, I love Tubi. And also, like, I use Netflix for Korean horror films because they have like a good variety of Korean horror films on there and documentaries. So that's what I kind of know my two go-tos. And of course, HBO Max for the classic stuff. But yeah, those are the three I really
Yeah.
use.
Big budget stuff. I'll also shout out Paramount.
Yeah.
Paramount and Peacock have a lot of horror stuff. Like a ton.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they do.
I'm looking
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Tubi right now and I just typed in horror. And you can watch Horror Hunters, Horror Express, Horror in the High Desert. These are things that just match horror. Jeepers Creepers is on there. Halloween's on there. Scary
Yeah,
Stories to Tell in the
Jeepers
Dark.
Creepers.
The Strangers is on here. Bone Tomahawk. I Spit on Your Grave. Pumpkinhead. These are just the ones that I shout out. Terrifier.
Shout out to Pumpkinhead.
House of a
Great
Thousand
creature
Corpses. Evil Dead 2. Murder Size, which I've seen. Oh boy, Bon Jovi's Vampires Los Muertos. You
Terrifying.
can watch on Tubi. Tubi's great. The original Texas Chainsaw is on Tubi.
Tubi's-
So is Hellfest, Shark Night. Yeah, I mean it's got a lot of stuff. Cat and Beaver, the new one, the
Lot of
remake, the terrible one. Don't watch that. Retract that. I do not want to have said that.
Too late.
Return of the Living Dead. There's a lot of great stuff. Tubi has been like it's kind of weird because I feel like Tubi has everything that you would pay Shudder for outside of like
I
the
agree.
originals.
Well, I'm paying for Shudder, so I say get Shudder.
I mean, I like Shudder. Have they had none of their originals have like made my radar of late. And I mean of late, I mean like the last year or two.
Yeah, man, the Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Check it out.
Okay. All right.
Caveat.
Yeah.
Check it out. I mentioned that one. Check it out.
The next question that we have comes from Yarden. He goes, which country makes the best horror films in your opinion?
The United
I'm not a
States of
horror. I'm not a
America.
huge horror fan. I'm weak and I scare easily. But I've seen most of the American staples. But just this week, I went back and watched a few from your 2020 episode, Train to Busan and The Platform. They're
Oh,
pretty incredible films.
I
And
love The Platform.
The Platform is incredible. I was just
So
about to say the same
much.
thing. You've got to watch it. That's must-see viewing for
Yeah.
anybody that's ever seen it. But I'll ask you guys, which country makes the best horror films?
America. Sorry, I don't say that because I'm from here. I think Japan does amazing horror films. I think Korea does great horror films, but I think every there's just too many good ones from here. There's just too many good ones, and everyone has their home run hitters. Every country does. Mexico's got The Platform.
Yep.
Japan has The Grudge. Korea has a handful of movies like, Japan has Ju-on, Host, and all that.
Ring.
Australia has some pretty big hitters, including Talk to Me. But there's just so many from here that I don't think it could be denied.
I'll jump in here
Classic
with you
ones.
because I agree with you. America, I'm just gonna fucking go hard for the states here. Like, this is what we do. We have international kick-ass. We have cheeseburgers and we have horror films. And not that other people don't also have horror films. And I actually wanted to ask. I was going to ask you guys this. Like, also, like, what counts? Like, is it produced by America? Like, directed by America? Is it filmed in America? Like, what if an American film is made but filmed in another country? Does it count for the other country? Does it count here? Look, ultimately, I think horror has a really good international like setting. Like, horror is made all over. But to say that any other country makes horror movies better than America is dissing Craven, Carpenter, Romero, King, Raimi,
Cameron,
Hitchcock, Hooper, Kubrick,
Cameron,
Holland, like Astor,
Cameron.
All the list.
like you're talking about Nightmare, Freddy, Evil Dead, Jaws, Alien. Like, come on, like this is kind of what we do. There are and I'm not saying that it's my favorite or the best, but I mean I am saying it's the best. But like there are other countries that have a lot of great horror movies.
High volume, United States, no question.
Yeah, but America just has so many.
Yeah.
So many greats, so many in the middle. Like it's a sheer volume. It just overwhelms, I think, what everybody else is really doing. I think. I'll shout out to Canada. Speaking of Cronenberg, dude, think about it. The Fly, Scanners, Videodrome, Tucker vs. Dale, Insidious, Black Christmas. Canada doesn't get its respect. I think J-horror gets all attributed to Japan. And I don't know if that's because Taiwan has its horror, Korea has its horror, and Japan has its horror. I think Korea's horror is the best. Yeah. And I think a lot of people might think it's all Japan horror, but it's not. You know, like Korea's got Busan and what is it, Parasite and The Wailing.
But Korea hasn't become huge until the past 10 years is when they became huge.
Right. Yeah. But like I think the casual person would think it's all Japan.
Yeah.
Whereas Japan is like The Ring.
Right.
Like that's like it's just kind of it. I think Spain has better horror movies than Japan does.
I agree.
That's fair.
France?
One I can think of like one.
Inside? Martyrs?
Martyrs, I would argue, is not a good
oh no.
Listen, sometimes you can just make something to gross people out, and that's what Marvel
Well, I mean, that's its own genre. That's its own genre. Delvin likes that shit.
Good.
Delvin's here for it.
No, I like the Saw series. I don't like all that human.
Right. Doesn't make Martyrs doesn't make it good.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Delvin?
Come on, man. USA. USA.
Right. Of course.
USA.
Yeah, let's continue to alienate the rest of the world.
He's literally in Florida. Yes. You cannot say not USA. He'll be arrested.
Yeah, exactly. They'll come pick me up.
All right. The Don Rob says, I love horror movies. What's your personal top 3?
Oh my God. I'm not
while you wait. His is The Haunting of Hill House. I wanted to ask, like the new one or the old one? Or, Part 1 and Raw.
For top 3?
That's his top 3 all time.
God bless you, sir.
That's quite an all-time top 3.
That is a list.
I'll go.
Go.
Evil Dead 2. No, let me change that.
I'll go. Nope.
Evil Dead remake.
That's great.
Evil Dead remake. Barbarian.
Wow.
And Midsommar. Midsommar. Followed by, not that they asked, Hereditary.
I'm surprised that you said Midsommar instead of Hereditary.
I love Midsommar.
I do too.
are. It's a totally different film than Hereditary. They're both equally terrifying, so I guess they're interchangeable at 3.
I will say Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead remake.
Yeah.
2013. I will say Midsummer.
And someday soon you will say Barbarian.
I will say Texas Chainsaw and Nightmare on Elm Street. Since you gave 4, I'll give 4.
Okay. No pressure,
Nightmare
Donovan.
on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Yeah. The
You're on
superhero.
prime time, bitch.
The superhero horror movie.
Part 2. Of course, I'm picking that one.
Yeah.
Like Friday the 13th Part 2.
Oh.
Ooh.
Really? Okay.
love
That's a good one.
love
I'm
this.
just surprised.
That's where it gets hard. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go. You know what? Evil Dead 1.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
really love
I
Evil
respect
Dead 1.
I respect
As you
that.
should. It's
I
great.
respect that.
Great movie. My Evil Dead is what the first one wanted to be. It was like the ultimate realization of that idea.
Yeah.
40 years later.
Yeah.
Have you seen Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead?
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Okay. All right.
It's
I'm
fantastic.
just checking. I'm just making sure. Because I know everybody, when that movie came out, and we talked about a lot of Decade Horror, when that movie came out, everybody was like, it's good, but it can't be as good. And I was like the lone person. I was like, it's better.
No, it's
People are like, that's
it's,
blasphemous. I'm like, you need to watch the movie again.
it's way better.
Because he nailed this shit. It was such a high bar to live up to. And the fact that he lived up to it was like, in and of itself, it's like, that's how good this was.
You make want to watch it again now.
I love it so much. I have the collector's edition, like the off-print steel, but like let's not go down that path. We'll spend too much time.
We'll be here forever.
Yeah, we'll be here forever. I got one more and then we'll read Sean's and then we'll close this 3-hour podcast to close. But the one more is, have you enjoyed any horror games this year, and or are you looking forward to any horror games next year?
Horror games. Oh boy.
Callisto
Have I even
Protocol.
played a horror game this year?
Oh, I actually have one more question I forgot about.
Delvin, what did you say? Have you
Callisto.
played one?
Callisto Protocol.
Oh,
love
okay. I
it.
guess that's
Yeah.
horror, yeah.
Coming soon to PlayStation Plus.
It was great.
And I guess
Fantastic.
Dead
I
Space
liked it.
remake would make my list, I suppose.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah.
But I haven't really tracked like a horror game I played. I've heard great things about Texas Chainsaw, but I also know it's a Dead by Daylight type of game,
Yeah,
which immediately makes me not
Correct.
interested.
yeah.
But I'm glad people are enjoying it. Seems fun.
Yeah.
I don't think I played another horror game besides Dead Space remake. I did play Callisto Protocol too, but I think that might be the only 2 games. I was interested in the
Is it
Chant,
this
but
year?
I think Donnie played it. And you don't like it?
Dude, the chant is
It's
terrible.
Okay.
It's
The
I
terrible.
didn't-
quarry was
pick it up.
better, and I have nothing nice to say about the quarry.
Well, that was last. Yeah.
If it was last
Okay.
year, I played a couple of stuff last year, but this year it's just been mainly Callisto Protocol. That's the main one.
Yeah.
I
I
wouldn't
agree
count
with you
Oxenfree 2.
That's where we're
Resident
lacking-
Evil.
we're lacking
Surprised
horror
nobody
in
brought
video.
up Resident Evil 4.
Oh yeah, I did beat
Yeah.
Resident Evil this year. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
play the
I
remake.
completely forgot.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It is.
I really loved my first time playing it on the Wii. Wii? Yeah, the
The
Wii
Wii.
U. The Wii.
The Wii.
the way.
I didn't play the remake though.
In terms of upcoming, I haven't played Dead Island yet. Dead Island 2.
Mm.
I'm kind of like waiting for a sale. It's like on my Black Friday watch list. Like I really want to play it, but it came out around time I was playing other things, and I've just always been playing other things. So keep waiting on a good sale. There's the Killer Clowns from Outer Space game that's coming out,
Yeah.
which is a
Also,
movie I watched this year with my wife, which is always fun. The big one for me is Clock Tower, of course. Clock Tower, which we talked about in Decade of Horror, many episodes. People have listened to me talk on PSVG for years, know how much I like this game. The original Clock Tower, the first Fear of the Super Nintendo game, is getting a re-release in like a port to Switch and PC and stuff at some point next year. So that'll be the game that I'm looking forward to most next year. It's
Yeah.
really the only thing that's like on my radar. Silent Hill, I guess, Is that
Alan
how
Wake
game
2. Alan Wake 2.
Alan
Oh,
Wake
good
2,
call. Yeah,
that's
I'll be playing Alan
great
Wake 2 for
answer.
sure.
Yep.
I forgot all
I'm
about
in
that.
it.
Good call. Let's see here. Sean had a thing. I thought I had another question. And I should have done a better job taking notes. I'm kind of drunk. So
I'd love to see it.
Sean writes in and he says, hang on. Oh, I had one more. Were there any decade horror movies we talked about all these episodes that you didn't get a chance to watch that you still want to?
Yeah, for sure, but I couldn't tell you what they are. There's a list somewhere in my Google Drive of notes I took about I gotta watch this movie, and it's still there, and maybe I'll get to them, but I think I hit the big ones from our time together. Considering when we started Decade of Horror, I hadn't seen Hereditary or The Conjuring or some of my now all-time favorite movies. Like, I really hit the jackpot on this podcast. Like, finding these huge, like, I can't undersell how good The Conjuring is. It is like,
Oh yeah,
almost a perfect film as far as like the mix of horror and story and how it's delivered and the acting. I didn't expect to enjoy it nearly as much as I did. D-Life drops in with The Invitation. I love The Invitation. Donnie does not love The Invitation, but that's okay. Donnie and me and Donnie's wife, we have similar tastes in movies. So
yeah, it's true.
Donnie's always quick to reassure me when he doesn't like a movie I loved. He's always like, but my wife loved it, and you guys have a very similar horror.
That's spot on.
thing.
And I take that into account when you're like, I really like this. I'm like, put it on the list. She'll like it.
So yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful for Decade of Horror and the movies that I have discovered. There's also bad movies I've seen thanks to Decade of Horror. Like, we need to talk about Kevin. We don't need to talk about Kevin.
No, we do. It's so good.
We also don't have to go to the lodge because
how dare you?
Here.
Riley Keough is a national treasure. How dare you?
She's great. And then the rest of the movie is dog shit. But with the good comes the bad and vice versa. And I'm so like, we've each, I think, made each other watch some movies we would never have seen.
True.
Regardless of what we take from it, I think that's great. And we do this because we know people are listening and they're taking what we say also seriously. So there's a ton of movies that we've covered in Decade of Horror that I still have to watch. That I am happy to do because I know between Donnie and Delvin and Lucas, like, these are people who know what they like and know what I like. So at least you can go from there. So you couldn't have a better group of people giving you recommendations.
We definitely do have different perspectives. Your first time listening, these episodes don't normally go as smoothly as tonight's top 10 went.
Yeah, it's taken us 5 years to get the motion going.
My favorite movie from Decade of Horror that I didn't watch, the one that came via recommendation, was Hobo with a Shotgun. Lucas told me I would love that movie, and he was right. I watched that movie for the first time, I think maybe last year, and I was like, I have to buy this movie. This movie's incredible. Like, he totally nailed it. I have yet to watch Barbarian, The Menu, which just made the list. I've also yet to watch Bubba Hotep.
Oh boy, Bubba Hotep! What a classic!
Which is on my to-do list.
Movie.
I never watched The Northman.
Me neither.
And I never watched Prey.
So good.
I'm sure if I have a list of every year that we did, I have a list where I went through. I never watched Antlers.
Okay.
I never watched The New Mutants.
Oh, that's good, but
No.
I wouldn't call that a horror movie.
Okay.
But Anya Taylor-Joy's in it, so and Nicholas Holt.
I never watched Snowpiercer.
Oh, so good, not horror.
Snowpiercer is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
not
I never
horror.
watched Possessor, which is
I
on my
love-
to-do list.
Well, I love Possessor. It's so
Right.
good.
It's on my to-do list. We've always talked about it, and I never watched it. So I've got to give that a try at some point.
Yeah. I love it.
Delvin brings an interesting perspective to this because this is his first episode. He was always a listener. So
Yeah.
our aim for this whole thing, as I've always said, was never to make the definitive list. We were never like, this is undoubtedly the greatest list of all time. It was always just to provide a list. Did you find new horror movies for the first time listening to Decade of Horror?
Of course, one of my favorite horror movies of all time came from it. Train from Busan.
Yeah.
Dude, Train to
I absolutely
Busan
love
is
that movie.
amazing. It's incredible.
And I would have never found it if it weren't for Decade of Horror. Didn't even know it existed.
Even worse, you could have got the American version.
Yeah, that was
You would have been like, this movie sucks.
Train to Atlanta.
I also saw we're all going to the World's Fair because of Decade of Horror.
Oh, I stopped
good. That was
watching.
really
We're
fascinating.
all going to the World's Fair. Like
That is
30
a-
minutes in.
I like it. It's an interesting movie.
Oh.
I'll put it that way. It's
It's
definitely
so good.
interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I tried with that one. I really tried. I tried so hard.
Yeah. And I'm probably going to watch The Platform because I
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a
That
must
was
see.
my list.
You
I
gotta
didn't
watch
So
that.
good.
Yeah, you gotta watch that. Did you watch Girl Walks Home Alone at night?
Write that one down.
Write it
Should watch that one too.
down, baby.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like the movies that we really went hard for.
Let the right one in, the original.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Did you see the foreign
the
version
remake.
of Let the
I
Right
think
One
both are good.
In? Yeah, but I like the original more.
Yeah.
It's like Train to Busan. I think we talked about that when it happened. I was like, this is not a movie that needs to be remade at all. Leave it alone. Like, it's perfect as it is. You can't recreate those roles, those actors, that experience. Leave it alone. Are there any what's on your next year watch list? What are you looking forward to?
I don't even know what's coming out next year.
I wrote down
I hit
some.
notes. Yeah.
I've got
I mean,
there's a Strangers reboot thing that's happening.
okay.
Maxine, the third installment to the X franchise, Pearl X, and there's supposed to be Maxine, as in Max, like triple
Okay.
X, X,
Yeah,
X,
yeah,
X, Maxine. There's a Salem's Lot reboot, which I don't know how to feel about that. That's kind of a movie I would rather just be left alone.
Yeah. Leave that.
We have
yeah,
The Exorcist coming out in a couple weeks.
That looks great.
It does. It really does. There's an Omen prequel out there, apparently, that exists.
There's a Witchboard remake coming out.
Yes, there is. I didn't have it on my list, but you were correct. I am legitimately too excited for A Quiet Place Day One.
Yeah. I think it's going to be good.
I think if you go back and re-roll the tape in Decade of Horror, I have always said that I'm so interested in what happened. What's the
Yeah,
prequel? Show me the
100%.
invasion. It's what I've always wanted. And they're like, yeah, we're making that movie and I'm fucking here for it. Like I've watched all these movies only wanting to watch that movie. And I'm very excited to see what happens. And I like both of them. Both of the Quiet Places I thought were good.
Yeah.
So there's a Cramp Crystal Lake reboot. We have Alien coming from Fede Alvarez. There's a series called Welcome to Derry that's been greenlit. A new series. Lots of series.
We got a new Jordan
Last-
Peele coming out
I heard
next year
about that.
too.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
What's
don't
it
have a
called?
title yet. We don't have a
Oh,
title
okay.
yet.
Oh, okay. Pet Cemetery Bloodlines.
With David
Chucky season
Duchovny. It looks terrible.
Last of Us season 2.
Yeah, we'll see with the writer's strike.
And not horror, but honestly doesn't really exist anywhere better. There's a reboot of The Crow apparently coming next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We'll see
What
how
about
that
that?
goes.
Yeah, I get no.
It's a hard movie to reboot. Like they
become
tried
a-
it multiple
yeah.
times and failed. It's a hard one to resurface, but
It's become a B movie thing now. Like it's
For sure.
They're never putting anyone good on the crew.
I think this one does though. Is it Bill Skarsgård? Yeah.
Oh well, then I'm in with Skarsgård's. Any Skarsgård, I'm in.
Right. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
It should be pretty good. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But there's a lot of, I'm sure there's gonna be 1,000 other ones that we don't know about. But that's what's on my radar. Do you guys have anything else?
Nosferatu.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then we will end the show with Sean Capri, who says, I can't think of a question, but I just want to say that this is probably my favorite thing that PSVG does.
Aw.
I'm so glad it's back, and I can't wait to listen. This show has inspired me to finally fill in some serious gaps in my horror movie watching. So thank you so much for doing this.
Nice. Thank you, Sean. That's very nice of you to say.
Thank you, Sean.
That was the whole point of this whole thing all along. Again, the originating idea was that Josh, Lucas, and I just loved horror movies, and we really just wanted to create like some sort of reason to get together and talk about them. And I will piggyback Sean. It's my favorite thing that I think I've done at PSVG, and it's been our least watched, least listened to thing. It's definitely not our most popular thing, and I'm totally fine with that because I've not put as much effort as I have done into episodes of Decade of Horror, especially when we were going hard. I was watching movies and taking notes. I mean, I've got my Excel workbook is full.
Yeah. We went harder
thoughts.
than Evil Dead Rise goes.
We did. I mean, I went to the wall for Decade of Horror, and it is definitely like, I look forward to this episode every year. And even this year, I didn't talk about it, but this year I kind of had a well-documented thing, if you're a member of the Discord, where I didn't do horror for months. I didn't get started really.
You were in a rut. Yeah.
I was in a rut.
I remember.
And then I started playing Fatal Frame, and it completely pulled me out of it. I was totally, speaking of games, I was playing Fatal Frame this year. I didn't finish it, but I just got way back into that feeling. And I was like, oh yeah. And then since then I've been a madman. I've watched more movies maybe this year than ever before. Yeah. I've talked it on PSVG a few times, but this year more than ever, I let my focus go so much on watching the new movies. I watched a lot. I think I watched a lot this year, but like it was because I wanted to and not because I felt like I had to. I watched way more movies from the 70s and the 80s and finding things that I wanted to watch. And I just kind of watched new releases as they were happening, as they became available. And I think that really kind of reset my bearings for me, because the Decade of Horror thing, I think we all had a kind of a hangover from that. Like it was a lot we'd watch 30, 40 movies.
We did a lot of work for that.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of prep work. And this year, I was feeling that maybe more so than ever this year, where like I really wanted to get back to watching the movies that I grew up watching, that I love to watch, that I wanted to go back and rewatch or discover for the first time. And it's Josh Pet Cemeteries himself. And it really turned out for me. So all those movies I mentioned earlier on my watch list, by October, I'm stoked. I'm so excited to get back into more of these kind of older horror films. But we'll be here again next year as we continue to count down Decade of Horror. But I'll open the floor. Do either of you have any other final thoughts?
There's a new Conjuring coming out next year.
That's true. Yeah.
The Last Rites.
Mm-hmm.
How exciting for you.
Hopefully it will be better than its Insidious counterpart. I mean, The Conjuring has always been better than Insidious, I think. Yeah. So hopefully we will see. I'm oddly excited for like that new Nun movie. The reviews are middling, but like the trailer the trailer looks really good. Better than the first one.
Nuns are scary for a very select group of people.
The first Nun sucked.
I get it.
But like this one, I think this one's going to be better than the first one.
Yeah. Awesome.
So with that said, any other closing remarks?
Thank you, Delvin. It's been awesome to have you with us.
Yeah.
And getting your perspective.
That's been a blast.
Even though he has
you don't like
on Texas Chainsaw and Barbarian, we still accept him for his incorrect takes.
Even though you put Sharknado as your number one movie for the year, I still accept it.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us. We wish you the very best of Halloweens this year. We hope you find some movies that you love and enjoy out of this podcast. May your trick-or-treating be safe. May your decorations be awesome. And we'll catch you next year Peace, Kooplings.
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. Heidi ho!